The MMA Roundtable is back from our week-long hiatus to break down the last 2 weeks MMA. We're really pumped. We had 3 cards to break down. UFC on Fox 5, UFC on FX, Pearson vs. Soteropoulos, and the Tough 16 finale. Lots of fun fights to talk about from those. Also, we got a double dose of news as well. Lots of fight announcements, lots of controversies. So yeah, we're excited to be back. MMA Roundtable every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Let's do it. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks to MMA Mental as well, the MMA Podcast and MMA Mental, and our buddy Ramses from Word on the Street. We all come together and do this roundtable every Thursday. Like I mentioned, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And speaking of MMA Mental, let me pass it off to Ray for him to get a little plug action in.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate that, mate. As always, me and Patrick, we talk about this show. We really look forward to doing the show every week. But I just want to give a shout out to what we've got going on our site at the moment. We've got me and Patrick did a great show yesterday. We actually had 3 guests on, but something went wrong with one of them, so we ended up going with 2 guests. We spoke to Mike the Warrior Wilkinson, fresh off of his what should have been fight of the night, in my opinion, performance against Brendan Loughnane. And we also spoke to Ryan Jimmo, who's going to be fighting in the UK soon against James Tahuna. And it was great speaking to him. And after I spoke to Mike, I asked him about doing a feature with us in the build-up to his next fight, which obviously hasn't been announced yet. So he's going to do fight diaries with us as well, which is very exciting. So yeah, definitely check that out at www.mmamental.com.
Hell yeah, and we had a little episode last night ourselves at the MMA Podcast. Check us out, themmapodcast.com, on Twitter, the MMA Podcast. We didn't have any guests last week. We're actually planning on having Lenny Hart on again, but it seems like her Thursday mornings, I guess, because she lives over in Japan, have been pretty stressful recently. She had a recording gig a couple weeks back. Actually, she had a friend get rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, nothing serious, but she wanted to be with her friend yesterday. So we're definitely going to have her on in the next couple weeks. Have a few more things in the work. Actually, been speaking with Chad George, his manager, the Occupation Fighter movie on Netflix. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. We're going to have him on, I believe, January 9th. And I know I've been saying it the last month now, but we are in talks with Renzo Gracie and Joey Coco Diaz and plan to get them on eventually. We'll let you know when we hammer something out for sure, but really looking forward to those interviews. Maybe even have Hector Lombard on in the next few weeks. We'll see. But yeah, if you want to join in on our conversation, you can tweet us at the MMA Podcast or MMA Mental. We always read those tweets out on the air if you have anything to say, and you can visit our website, themmapodcast.com. Before we get on the road with these fight recaps, we had 3 cards since our last roundtable. You want to give the answers to your last batch of Fight Busters and shout out your new Fight Busters, Ray?
Yeah, absolutely. People are still finding it quite difficult, so we've still got the same prize, obviously, from our sponsors, UK Fightwear. So you can win a blue dethrone hat. We haven't been able to give that away yet. But the last ones, we had 3 Fight Busters, and they were all fighters that were fighting either UFC on FX 6 or the Tough 16 finale. And I'll give you the 3 clues and the 3 answers, and I'll give you 3 more clues for this week, and they're all UFC fighters this week. So the first clue was a rubber sleeping in a car. Now I think I got this. I might have got this. This might have been a bit confusing because this might have been an English term. But a rubber is another word for a Johnny, which is another word for a condom. So a rubber was Johnny. Sleep in the car was bed and Ford. So you had Johnny Bedford. Singing in Brazil, you sing with a mic, and the city in Brazil is Rio. So we had Rio, and has to be a female playing on the swing. So if it has to be a female, then it's not a man. So it's no man. And swings is in a park, so it was Norman Park. And the interesting thing was, all 3 of those guys all went on and had pretty impressive wins on their fights as well, which was quite good. And then this week we've got 3 more cryptic clues. Again, if people want to tweet in the answers, they can tweet it at MMA Mental or at MMA Podcast or the MMA Podcast, or you can email mmamental@hotmail.com. The first clue is Murphy drinking on the ground. Clue number 2 is a long way to go to find the correct 12 people. And clue number 3 is wipe your feet and then work out the clue.
Can you read the last two? I'm writing these down, Ray. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Number 2 is a long way to go to find the correct 12 people. And then number 3 is wipe your feet and then work out the clue. So Jake's already got number 3, so that's correct. Well done, Jakey.
Yeah, and we'll definitely shout those out again toward the end of the podcast. And yeah, come on, people, we got a free blue dethrone hat up for grabs. I might just set up a fake Twitter account and try and win it, just because that hat is so beautiful. But I don't think I would, because I wouldn't want to con my buddy Ray. But yeah, definitely check those out. If you think you know them, tweet at MMA Mental or at the MMA Podcast, and yeah, get yourself a free hat, son. So we'll go over that one more time towards the end of the podcast. But let's get into these fights, dude. What a card in UFC on Fox 5. Really quickly, I'll go over everything that wasn't the top 3 huge fights, and let me know your favorite moment. Had a bunch of fights. Scotty Jorgensen defeating John Albert by rear naked choke in the first round with 1 second to go. Dennis Seaver putting a hammering on Nam Phan, winning that unanimous decision. It was 30-24 on one judge's card. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Lightweight match, we had Abel Trujillo defeat Marcus Levasseur in the second round via TKO. Darren Cruikshank with a beheading of a head kick in the middle of the second round to defeat Henry Martinez. Ramsey Nijum grinding out Joe Proctor for the unanimous decision. Rafael Asunciao grinding out Mike Easton for the unanimous decision in the bantamweight division. Our boy Ramses' boy, Eve Edwards, the Thug Jitsu master, with the knockout of the night. First round, 2 minutes in. I'm pretty sure I know what his favorite moment was. And Matt Brown defeating Mike Swick in the second round via KO. I guess I'll lead it off with my favorite moment, and it does come because I have a little bit of favoritism for Darren Cruikshank. But honestly, even if I didn't, even if he hadn't been on our first episode, I still think this may have been my favorite moment of the night, because I love me a nice one hit head kick knockout, and that's what Darren delivered. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. What about you guys? What was your favorite moment, not including those top 3 fights at UFC on Fox 5?
I'll tell you what, it's so hard to pick one moment when it was such an epic undercard. It was just amazing. For me, I enjoyed all of those fights, apart from one fight, which was Asunciao and Easton. I thought that was a really boring fight. If I had to pick a favourite, I'll narrow it down to 2. I'm going to narrow it down to Abel Truji, who, I'll be honest with you, completely blew me away. And the thought of watching him fight Tim Means, that's exciting, because those 2 guys are just beasts. And obviously what you just said about Darren Cruikshank, I mean, oh my God. This was the first part of what we're going to get onto later, but how was that not KO of the night? And I don't want to take any away from Eve Edwards. Eve Edwards was brilliant. But how was that kick not KO of the night, please?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, my favorite moment is by far Darren Cruikshank. And yes, we play favorites with guys that we've had on, but I was telling Jake yesterday, man, I think that at the end of the year MMA awards, they should have something like performance of the year, one performance, one fight where someone really shined through. And Darren Cruikshank definitely had a candidate for performance of the year. He put such a beating on Henry Martinez, made it look effortless, and his stringing together of techniques was just a thing of beauty to watch.
I gotta say, my favorite moment of UFC on Fox 5, you guessed it, Jake. It was Eve Edwards sending Jeremy Stephens back to jail. Except this time, they locked the cage behind Jeremy Stephens, ka-chink, and he knew his ass beating was going to be televised live, all right? It was impressive. That's what happens when a pro veteran goes up against just some dude that likes to fight, all right? Jeremy Stephens, he's in trouble now. I think he's on some sort of severe loss streak, if I'm not mistaken. But no, the favorite moment was Eve Edwards just knocking him the fuck out with a counter hook. That's why it's like hard to predict how Eve Edwards is ever going to finish somebody. I mean, I knew he was going to win. For some reason, that part was the prediction that got dropped out of our last roundtable due to internet issues, but I did call it in detail. But Yves Edwards, you can't predict how he's going to finish, just like you can't ever predict how Anderson Silva's going to finish. They're both pros vets. You never know what they're going to pull out in their arsenal. That's why I didn't believe that Jeremy Stephens even presented a threat, had a chance, and you just saw what happened. I mean, it was a lot worse than a simple jail cell squabble, all right? Jeremy Stephens, you're in trouble. Thug Jitsu, shout out.
For me, I think Darren Cruikshank was absolutely the best performance of the preliminary card. He had stated on MMA Mental, and I know he talked with the MMA podcast as well, but he had stated that he's a wrestler too, and the way he was portrayed on Tough Live, they didn't necessarily reflect that. They wanted to focus more on his striking background and his karate skills, and I think a lot of people might have thought Henry Martinez could have gotten the decision on this one. I thought that was possible, but he really showed he's got some good takedown defense. We already knew his striking was good. And he put it together in the form of a savage beatdown on Henry Martinez. I mean, that fight could have easily been called in the first round at several points, but it proceeded to go on. And Darren Cruikshank ended up connecting with a head kick that I thought internally decapitated Henry Martinez. I mean, it was a disgusting knockout and easily performance of the night.
For sure, yeah, those two knockouts with Yves Edwards and Darren Cruikshank were really, really great. And kind of getting to Ray's point, I do personally think Darren should have won knockout of the night, because I think that award should go to what the most visceral knockout was. And, as pretty as Yves Edwards was just bullying Jeremy Stephens, it wasn't just a one-hit KO where he just literally turns off the lights with one strike. And I think it should go to that. But in Yves' favor, it was only 2 minutes into the fight when it took Darren Cruikshank about 8 minutes to put away Henry Martinez. But either way, both of those were really, really fun knockouts, and yeah, it was an amazing card. And getting to those top three fights, man, my boy BJ Penn, favorite fighter of all time, he got his ass handed to him. And for everybody said that a motivated BJ Penn has never lost a fight, well, a motivated BJ Penn lost about a week and a half ago via unanimous decision. 30-26 on two of the judges' cards, 30-27 on the third. Just not a pretty fight. Rory McDonald had such a size advantage on BJ Penn. Rory is arguably a natural middleweight, and BJ Penn is a natural lightweight, so you had guys who really didn't belong to be in the octagon with each other, and the bigger guy won. It's a prime example of why we have weight classes in the sport, because the bigger guy is going to win 9 out of 10 times. But what do you think is next for each guy? Personally, we went into it on the MMA podcast. I actually kind of was making it up as I went and have had a little bit of time to think about it. But what I think should happen, GSP faces Nick Diaz, will probably win that fight. Then GSP should be matched up against the winner of Johnny Hendricks and Jake Ellenberger. Obviously, Johnny Hendricks is the number one contender now. If he beats Ellenberger and doesn't get a title shot right after that, it's a travesty. So most likely we see GSP fight Diaz and then Hendricks next. And then for the next shot, I want to see him bring Marquardt in after he knocks the daylights out of Tarek Safadine. See the winner of McDonald Condit fight Marquardt, and then the winner of that get the next title shot. I know I'm looking way far down the road, and injuries can happen and whatnot, but just barring anything crazy happening, that's what I want to see happen for Rory. For BJ Penn, he needs to move down to lightweight or retire, period. He's done in the welterweight division, and there are still a lot of interesting fights at lightweight for him. I don't want to see him retire. I still want to see him stay around. I mean, think about all the different matchups Penn can draw with the 155-pounders. I'd love to see all of them. Penn versus Joe Lauzon, Penn versus even a Nate Diaz, Penn versus Gilbert Melendez, very similar frames in those two guys. Penn even versus Benson Henderson would be a really intriguing matchup. So yeah, Rory McDonald, he's getting close, probably uncomfortably close to GSP's belt, and BJ Penn really needs to drop down to lightweight. Chris?
Yeah, I really enjoy that Marquardt idea. I'm kind of on the fence as if that would happen, considering Marquardt's longtime history of training with GSP, and I'm sure with Rory at some point. But that being said, he trains at Grudge. He's not over at Jackson's all the time. As far as who I'd like to see him face, I would love to see Rory McDonald face a large grappler, and the perfect fight for him would be the winner of John Fitch versus Damian Maia. Both of those guys are massive for the weight class, so I think that would really give him some fits because he just hasn't faced a really high-level guy besides BJ Penn and Carlos Condit. So I'd like to see that happen, or maybe Eric Silva if he gets past his next opponent. They seem kind of on similar trajectories, and you're absolutely right with BJ Penn. Should have been at 170, man. I have no idea why he went back up. He's just way too small, and lightweight is where it's at. He's going to take some time, but all the matchups you brought up, I would love to see. The Nate Diaz fight would be very interesting as far as sales and how they would sell it, kind of redemption because of that beating he took against Nick.
What's next? Whatever's next for Rory McDonald, I personally don't care. This kid isn't implanting himself in my mind. Like this persona that he's adopted, I'm not buying it for 1 second. Rory McDonald has the personality of a dead cell phone. He's just as useless to me. All right, just good luck ever having an interview with that kid. If you guys ever score him, anybody, good luck interviewing Rory McDonald. What the fuck is that going to sound like? And he shows up to the fucking arena for the BJ Penn fight dressed up like a metrosexual Sherlock Holmes. All right, he was dressed in a fancy long rain detective coat, and I checked the weather over there in Seattle. It was fine that day. It wasn't fucking raining. As far as what's next for him, it's probably going to be Condit. Aren't they calling each other out? It's pretty much that fight actually does make sense to me, the rematch. As far as BJ Penn, he got paid $150K on paper to do this whole fucking fake fight, whatever the hell. He wasn't swinging by the end of the damn fight. He got paid $150K. We'll see how long it lasts him. Luckily, the kid took it easy on him, didn't actually hurt him. So BJ might be back just whenever he runs out of money and needs another paycheck. We'll see him again. That's my guess.
Yeah, that pretty spot on there, Ramses. We really all know where this is going. Rory and Condit is essentially booked. They're talking about that for, I believe, UFC 158. And for BJ Penn, it's pretty much, I think retirement's a good option. Definitely one you don't want to overlook. What more can you really do? He was 2-division UFC champion, one of the pound-for-pound best. If he would have gotten on the cardio train and stayed at 155, a little younger in the game, who knows where he'd be at? But it's one of those things. I don't want to say he's past his peak, but it is what it is. So I think retirement's what's next for BJ and Rory McDonald. Yeah, he's got a rematch with Condit coming up. So I think Rory will probably seal the deal on this one like he did. He was working Condit the first 2 rounds. And I think he'll be able to dominate the fight the entire time.
Before I jump in, I've got a real quick question to ask Ramses, because from hearing him speak, I can tell he's a real big Rory McDonald fan. What did you think to the new Rory McDonald shuffle?
When he broke out the fucking shuffle, it was ridiculous, all right? That's when you knew it was a game of cat and mouse, all right? He was just playing tag with BJ Penn's face, just like he practiced, all right? It was just like practice again. And yeah, the shuffle, he should have started doing the hammer dance, all right, in the middle of the goddamn fight. It was that bad. BJ was that gassed. Rory McDonald's got some more dance moves. He could have busted him out, but like I said, he took it easy on the kid. But it was Rory wasn't fucking playing games. He was letting everybody know, like, this is a fucking, this might as well be choreographed. He was dancing.
He had a new haircut, too.
I wanted to get your input on that because I thought you might like that. I thought it was pretty good, to be fair. Rory McDonald, yeah, I think from what I gather, is going to be fighting Carlos Condit. When Jake was going through all those matches, listening to all them, it just shows you how deep and exciting that welterweight division is because there's so many great fighters up near the top. But yeah, I don't mind where we're going to fight. So I don't think he's ever going to fight for the title by GSP's champion because of their friendship. I don't mind seeing these fights. I like seeing him fight top guys. I'm happy to see him rematch Condit because I think that will hurt him because of the regional result. Because like Patrick said, he was winning that fight and then he gassed, and obviously he probably, maybe it should have been stopped, maybe it shouldn't have been, I don't know. But if that hadn't been stopped with like 5 seconds to go, he would have won the decision. With regards to BJ Penn, the reason BJ Penn fights at 170 is because he's too lazy to drop down to 155. It's a hard cut for him to make, and when he's not mentally in the game, he can't make that cut. And obviously, he went up the first time to fight GSP because he obviously thought he could. He thought he could do that. Oh, someone's trying to call us. He thought he could do that, and then he lost that fight. But staying up at lightweight after that, he's done that because it's too hard for him to make the lightweight. I really believe that. And 100% BJ fights at lightweight. Any BJ Penn that's fighting at welterweight is not 100%, and is basically, that's why he lost that fight. I hope he retires now because I think he's ruining his legacy. He wants to be considered a GOAT. He's not considered a GOAT because he's hung around for too long and he's fought above his weight class. He should have stayed at lightweight, and he probably would still be considered a GOAT.
Definitely, yeah. Looks like we were getting a call. I was trying to call him back, see if we could get him added on. I'll try and contact him again and see if we can see what he wanted to add in. But I guess for now, let's move on to the co-main event. Alexander Gustafsson defeating Shogun Rua via unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 30-26. Really impressed me. To me at least, Alexander Gustafsson didn't have any real quality wins on his record, and now he's really got one in defeating Shogun. Where does either guy go from here? I really think this is the beginning of the end for Shogun Rua. Not that I don't think he won't have any more impressive victories or wars, but I think his run at the title and taking back the belt, dreams of all that, I think are pretty much quelled. Just was manhandled by our boy Alexander Gustafsson. And as far as Gustafsson, sky's the limit. He's very Dominic Cruz-esque. He has that John Jones size, and just looked really, really good. Where do you think either guy goes from here?
Well, Gustafsson, he's not going to get a title shot. Let's face it, that division, it's on hold until the big Jones versus Sonnen fight happens. Nobody's getting a title shot until that happens. That's just my opinion. I mean, I don't see anybody just standing out right now. I don't see anybody standing out by the time April 27th comes down. Sonnen versus Jones, UFC 159 or 160, not sure yet. But Gustafsson, he needs to fight another big name like Gatekeeper, or realistically, I'm guessing Brandon Vera would be the next best fight that makes sense at this point. As far as Shogun, he is the gatekeeper of the division. I mean, the newer, younger kids, John Jones and Gustafsson, he really had nothing. He had no answer. So Shogun, he's basically a big name gatekeeper of the fucking division. And, I think he should just, his next fight, maybe rematch Dan Henderson. Since the division's on hold, let's have some fun fights. Shogun should rematch Dan Henderson, whether Dan wins or loses against Machida. I mean, who gives a shit? Since the division is on hold, like I said, it's a big fun, big name rematch that every fan would talk about and want to watch. But yeah, Shogun, I agree, he's on his way out. That's why he just needs to get paid, make the fun fights for the fans while he's still got time and, before he's been knocked out, which he managed to avoid. So credit to Shogun for not getting the fuck knocked out of him. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah, for me, I really like Gus's performance against Shogun. He answered a lot of questions. He was able to hang in there with a real killer in Shogun Rua. I mean, he's obviously not the same Shogun he was in Pride. He's been in so many wars. He can never be that Shogun again. It's like an NFL running back. having a 2,000-yard season. You can't expect them to do that again because that's just not how it works. You keep taking damage, you're going to get worse as your age goes on. That's the way it is in combat sports. That's just the nature of the beast. And hey, if Shogun and Dan Henderson were to do a rematch, I think that'd be great. I'd love to see Dan Henderson just beat the shit out of Shogun again because that was one of the best fights I ever saw in my life. And as for Gustafsson, like Ramsey's pointed out, the light heavyweight division is just fucked up at this point. The UFC, they're really just, I mean, they're putting their champions on hold by putting on the Ultimate Fighter, which is getting no ratings and yielding very little talent, like except for the international versions. I think they've been yielding some promising talent in the form of Tough Brazil and Tough Smashes. But, you know, you keep skimming the same pools. I mean, eventually it's just, you're not going to yield much. And I think that's what we're seeing. They're delaying their belts. You get maybe 1 or 2 title fights per division a year. It's just sad. So as for Gustafsson, I'd like to see him end up, fighting perhaps, God, I don't even know. It's like everybody's booked at 205 right now. He can't fight Phil Davis because he trains with them. So, you know, who knows if there will be a rematch there. So I can't really say. Maybe a Ryan Bader or someone along those lines.
My thoughts. For me, I mean, obviously a lot of us are on the playground. We make our predictions. That fight played out exactly how I expected it to play out. It was Gustafsson doing what he does and using his strike and his range and keeping Shogun at bay. And I didn't think he'd be able to stop Shogun because Shogun's ultra tough. But I actually thought that Gustafsson would do what he did. So that fight kind of went the way it did. Jake said about him getting a legit victory. I thought his victory over Thiago Silva was a legit victory, to be honest with you. And I also think some of the other guys he beat, they might not have been big names, but the way he beat them was impressive. Like the way he was able to knock out Matt Hamill and knock out Vladimir Matyashenko, who were 2 really tough guys. Now, I'd expect him to beat them, but to beat them in the way he did, that's what impressed me rather than the fact that he beat them. I think he will end up fighting for a title next. I think he will. I think he'll wait and he'll fight the Jones Sonnen. I thought I'd read that somewhere. He'll fight the Jones Sonnen winner. As regards to Shogun, I don't think Shogun's done. I don't think he'll ever fight for the title again. But he's still for me a top 5, top 6 fighter. And whoever he fights, I'm always excited to see him fight personally. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I don't mind who Shogun fights next, but regardless, I'm looking forward to it. I weren't keen on the Gustafsson Vera fight just because I think that's a step down for Gustafsson because he's fighting the guy who lost the guy he's just beat. So that doesn't make sense to me.
One thing that you guys, I don't know, I'm on a different page than you guys when it comes to Shogun. I do agree that his knees are shot. He's had so many surgeries. He's been in so many wars. And on top of that, in Pride, I mean, he really shined with a different rule set with those soccer kicks and the stomps and the things he could do. He was much more vicious back then because of the rule set that he had access to. And as far as his performance on Saturday night, he looked in great shape. He was kicking again. I mean, he was leaner than he's been since, I think, when he fought Forrest Griffin for the second time. He didn't have his normal chub. He looked really motivated, and he hit Gustafsson with some really nice shots, and that's a kind of a credit to Gustafsson's chin. So I don't think he's done it all, man. I think if he just gets back to training with Rafael Cordeiro at King's MMA, like he did for the Forrest Griffin fight, instead of being comfortable at home, I think he could really turn it around. That being said, I think that Gustafsson is probably, I think he's next in line for the title. I mean, Dan Henderson versus Machida. If Machida wins, it's not something I want to see. If Henderson wins, it is something I want to see, but I mean, he still needs that tune-up fight. I say throw Gustafsson in against the winner of Sonnen versus Jones.
Damn, for the next title fight. Yeah, let's go over that Ben Henderson-Nate Diaz fight. I actually spoke with our caller just a second ago. I'll talk about that after we get through this card. Before we hit up Guess That Tweet. But Ben Henderson, Nate Diaz, one of the judges had it 50-43, the other two had it 50-45. Very decisive victory for the champion. Excellent win. And yeah, you know, Bendo really proved his grit in the lightweight division, you know, and before we talk about the actual fight, where each guy goes from here, I want to talk about Toothpick Gate, because it was seen on the screens that Benson Henderson was fighting that 25-minute fight with a toothpick in his fucking beak. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and you saw video evidence of it that he's walking back to his corner, and this little toothpick pops out. Dana White said that he'll leave it up to the state commissions to discipline him. The Washington State Commission said, there's no rules on a toothpick, which is kind of horseshit, because obviously there are rules on bringing foreign objects into the ring, and he broke that. But yeah, just, I saw everything on the spectrum of he shouldn't even get a warning, that's entertaining, he didn't hurt anybody, to Henderson should be disqualified and the title should be given to Nate Diaz. Probably what'll happen, especially with the lack of a fighter union, we won't see a fine, but he'll get a stern talking to from Dana, and that'll probably be it. But yeah, what do you guys think about Toothpick Gate? That shit was insane.
Yeah, that's that's just a bad move, especially when you're going up against a boxer like Nate Diaz. He's really been putting it on, and he was on a real tear coming into that title fight. And to fight with a toothpick in your mouth the whole time, I can only imagine the kind of horrors that could happen if he were to get punched in the jaw while chomping down on that thing. But as far as fines and sanctions and stuff like that, I'm not going to go crazy and say, it should be a DQ, give Nate the belt. Fair is fair. If you can fight that well with a toothpick in your mouth to not get jacked up and get a hole put through your cheek, then props to you. Hey, that just means you're a badass. And, I kind of underestimated Ben Henderson in the WEC. And even since he had gained the UFC title, I find myself underestimating him a little bit. But after what he did to Nate Diaz, I definitely got to give him his respect. And he's definitely one of the best fighters in the world.
The performance by Benson Henderson was absolutely amazing. Nate Diaz is a great fighter, and we've seen what Nate Diaz has done recently to some top guys, and Henderson just had his way with him from start to finish. It was a brilliant fight, regardless of the fact that Henderson was constantly putting it on him. Diaz was always in the fight just because Diaz is so aggressive, and he's always looking for a way to finish the fight. And I thought it was a really, really good fight. It was a brilliant lightweight fight. The toothpick thing's very strange. I don't understand why he would have it in his mouth. And if there isn't a rule to say he can't do it, they need to bring that rule in, because that's not safe to do something like that. And what if it had gone down his throat? And he's not just thinking about himself. He's got to think about other people that are there that are going to... the doctors don't know that he's fighting with a toothpick in his mouth. So therefore, if he starts to choke, how do they know what he's choking on? It's just ridiculous. If there's not a rule there, they need to bring that rule in. That's what I think.
Yeah, this fight was just mental, as well as having a toothpick in your
MMA
mouth.
mental.
There you go. Atta girl. Yeah, Benson Henderson absolutely savaged Nate Diaz. I thought to hear Patrick on our breakdown of the fight before it happened say that Nate Diaz is just going to put it to Benson Henderson, and then to see what actually happened, just goes to show you, man, that styles make fights. And even though he was in a stinker against Frankie Edgar, gifted it a decision in their second fight, he's obviously evolved even more since then and really showed a blueprint on how to beat the Diaz brothers. GSP even thanked him for it. He worked the body, he used the clinch, he savaged him, man, and he actually, what I enjoyed most about the fight is when Nate Diaz was taunting him, he got dropped right after that, man. So it just goes to show you that you can't just taunt people and get in everyone's heads. It may have worked for Miller, it may have worked for Cerrone, but it's not going to work against Ben Henderson. And I think this fight really put him on the map, and it couldn't have gone any better for Fox for a main event. Even though it went to a decision, that can show the casual fans that the sport can be dynamic and exciting, even without those crazy knockouts and finishes. I love these 5-round fights that Benson Henderson gets into. So, as far as the toothpick thing goes, he broke a rule, man. He put his safety in jeopardy. He put his opponent in jeopardy. He put the promotion in jeopardy, and he put Fox in jeopardy. And I think there should be repercussions for it.
Yeah, I gotta agree. He definitely bringing a sharp object into the octagon. I'm pretty sure there is a rule against that. But it just goes to show you just how much of it's the pre-fight pat down and check by the ref. That's pretty much just for show, guys. That's some WWE type shit when we're watching that. Obviously, they're not patting the guy fully. They're not checking for any. Like I said, he smuggled a fucking toothpick into the octagon. What else can you smuggle in? He probably had it like just straight up in his mouth, tucked away, maybe underneath the mouthpiece. I mean, the ref never checks there. They don't inspect the inside of your mouth really normally. It's all for show. That's what they kind of probably need to revise now. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening. I'm not recommending full body cavity searches because that would be ridiculous. We're not paying money on pay-per-view to see that. All right, I'm not dropping money to see a full body cavity search right before the fucking fight. But I'm just saying the pre-fight pat down, it's all for show. You notice they're always doing it standing on their sponsor's platform. So yeah, Bendo, he gets away with it. No joke. He openly flaunts it. No surprise there. And shit, he's a champ. He deserves it. He fucking outclassed Diaz straight up. Word on the street.
Word on the fucking street. And one more topic before we get to guess that tweet. Where does each guy go from here? Henderson, obviously the champion. Personally, they've hinted that the winner of Pettis Cerrone should get a title shot, and I think Cerrone deserves one. But I'm not, even though Pettis is the only guy who's beaten him. I still think Pettis should get one more fight after that before the title shot. So if Cerrone wins, I say Cerrone. If Pettis wins, bring Gilbert over and give him a title shot. I don't know if it's me, but that's the way I feel about Henderson's next fight. For Nate Diaz, let him drop down and see if he can keep crushing these title contenders in the lightweight division. Did it to Cerrone, did it to Jim Miller, did it to Takanori Gomi, just putting him away. And let's see if he can keep on going and see if he can get another title shot. I think Diaz would have put up much more of a fight if he hadn't gotten his right orbital wrecked by Henderson in the first round. So let's start giving more Tigers at lightweight back to Nate Diaz.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Benson Henderson, a good option would be either Gilbert Melendez. He's the Strikeforce 155-pound champ. Nate Diaz, he's been campaigning for Gil to get that title shot for a while, not even putting himself in there. So there's that option. Plus, as we know, the UFC, they've been looking at Eddie Alvarez, the former Bellator 155-pound champ. Definitely a highly rated lightweight, not in the UFC. So there's a couple different options for Zuffa to go with for Ben Henderson. As for Nate Diaz, he was saying at the event press conference, the post-fight press conference, that as soon as his eye was healed up, he's ready to go. He's down to fight anybody. That's how Nate rolls. So I guess whoever's clever for Nate. I mean, he's really come along at 155 in spite of his showing against Ben Henderson. So it'll be interesting to see who he gets. There's a lot of good prospects we saw come out on the same card. So who knows? Maybe he'll get a Abel Trujillo or some along those lines.
With regards to Benson Henderson, I'd be happy to see him take on the winner of Pettis Cerrone. And I know what Jake was saying about Pettis, but if Pettis beats Cerrone, then I think he's in position, especially with the fact that he beat him in their last fight and it was such a good fight between them two. So I'd be happy to see the winner of them two take on Benson Henderson. I know Melendez was talking about dropping to 145, but that was before Nate Diaz lost. So I don't know if that talk stopped, whether he's going to stay at 155, I'm not sure. As for Nate Diaz, maybe a rubber match with Gray Maynard. They fought twice. I know one of them was an exhibition match, but they both got a win each. It'd be nice to see them put things to rest and have a rubber match. And maybe also he could welcome Eddie Alvarez to the UFC, because I don't think Eddie Alvarez should get a title shot straight away. But I think Nate Diaz versus Eddie Alvarez would be an amazing fight. So they're the fights that I like.
Yeah, these are all great ideas. I mean, ultimately, if Cerrone wins, he deserves that shot. He is done nothing but excel in the UFC. I tend to agree with Jake as far as it comes to Pettis. I mean, beating Jeremy Stevens by a wrestling clinic and then knocking out Joe Lozon in 1 minute and losing a decision to Clay Guida doesn't really add up to a title shot if he beats Cerrone, in my opinion. As far as Melendez coming over, I think Melendez is a overrated can. I mean, he barely got by Josh fucking Thompson, for Christ's sake. He should have lost that fight, in my opinion. So I'm not really too high on the guy. I want him to come in and get a real good number one contender fight before he contends for that title. I don't care if he's the Strikeforce champion. Beating Masvidal and Josh Thompson doesn't really warrant a shot, in my opinion. And as far as Eddie Alvarez goes, I think he's going to be in a lot of exciting fights, but he gets rocked in every single fight he gets in. I mean, he got rocked by Michael Chandler. He got rocked bad by Pitbull. So I think that his go for broke, devil may care style is good for the fans, but from a standpoint of being a real true contender in the UFC, I don't think that's going to happen. So my money's on Cerrone, and with Nate Diaz, he's got to work his way up. So put him in there against I think Tebow. Gleison Tebow's fighting someone, so the winner of that fight sounds good. I just think that he needs to kind of redefine himself, even though he looked good in that fight, and maybe even a drop to 45. That works for some people.
Benson Henderson and Nate Diaz. Where does each guy go from here? I can tell you, as far as Ben Henderson's concerned, I don't give a damn. He is, he is a focused, he's a tuned-up championship fighter. He's doing everything right. But watching him fight is straight up fucking boring. He has boring fights. The only reason the last fight with Nate Diaz was exciting was because it was against Nate Diaz. All right, you put Benson Henderson up against just a fucking whoever, next no name or any other fight that isn't a big name is a boring fight. So for both of them, I have to call. I'd like to see Benson Henderson and Nate Diaz both fight the same guy because I just want to see him let out of his cage again. He's ready. Well, he's not ready yet, but I do want to see Bendo and Nate Diaz. I don't care which one. I want to see them fight Gray fucking Maynard. All right? Anybody in that division, just take on Gray Maynard. He'll fucking fight you as soon as he's ready. But what's next for them? Who gives a shit? Nate Diaz, he'll just smoke some weed and call somebody else out, and God bless him. Word on the street.
Word on the street. Speaking of word on the street, actually, before we get to guess that tweet, our buddy Doug Walker from Daytona Beach, Walker D7117 on shit. Twitter. Yeah, he actually tried calling in a minute ago, and sorry, we will have everything figured out next week, but basically the deal was in Chicago, my internet was horrible, so we had Chris start to host the calls, so when somebody called in, I couldn't add them. Chris had to, and if you were calling from a landline, it cost Chris money, and he doesn't have money on his Skype account, but I'm going to start hosting the calls next week because I'm back in Florida with good internet, so we will be taking calls next week. This week, you can just Twitter us at the MMA Podcast, and Ramses, your boy from Daytona, said, credit to Ramses for great predictions and a great show. And he had a quick question for you. When Chael Sonnen dominates Jones in April, will he call out Silva again for a third fight?
Well, first off, shout out to Doug Walker. I do know who he is. Dude, he's always coming through just positive feedback on the fucking Twitter. I really appreciate it, man. He is a big Chael Sonnen fan, obviously, by the question. And what was it? If Jones, when Sonnen beats Jones, is he going to call out Anderson Silva again?
Correct.
I don't think so. All right. I mean, he's already proved himself against Anderson Silva. He beat that man 5 rounds out of 7. You guys can debate, finishes and submissions and this and that, tap outs, but he beat that man just soundly 5 rounds out of 7. You give him 10 complete rounds. Who do you think is going to be on top at the end of 10 full rounds? That's what I'm saying. He's done with Silva. He's moved up to the 205, all right? That's legit. He's going to get his belt on, and he's going to sit on that for a while, all right? He's not going to drop it. He's not going to drop it to Rampage. He's not going to drop the belt to Mr. T. Mr. Sonnen, he ain't going to fuck around, all right? He is going to take on anybody that wants to step up, and anybody that calls out Chael Sonnen when he's got the belt is going to get the fight, all right? He's not going to say no, hands down. But as far as moving back to 185, it ain't going to happen. Silva's going to have to step up to his pedestal at 205 if they want that fight to ever happen. Word on the street.
Word on the motherfucking street. And you know what rhymes with word on the street? It's Guess That Tweet. And this week it is hosted by Ray. So I guess you have some tweets ready. Currently the score is 5-3. Team MMA Podcast leading MMA Mental. And Patrick, he's very, very outnumbered this week with Dave gone. It's Chris Ramses and I representing Team MMA Podcast. And
Suck it.
Patrick, who won last week, looking to get MMA Mental on the boards. Ramsey's looking for his first win. Ray, take it away.
Right, I've got some bad news.
My God, what is it?
I forgot to get the tweets ready.
Oh, shit.
I'm only joking. Right, ready to go? Right, what I've got is I've got 5 tweets, and then I've got a tiebreaker as well. So regardless of if we need the tiebreaker, we're gonna do the tiebreaker anyway.
We won't.
And there's
I'm
the
a win
this week. Every tweet has the same theme. Okay, I'm pretty sure you'll pick up on that theme straight away. I know, like when Jake did it the other week, it was the pictures. Well, I've gone for a theme as well. Okay.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yes, we're ready.
Sounds good.
Tweet number 1. Who thinks we will see an alien invasion tomorrow or something crazy? I don't think anything will happen, honestly. Okay, is that A, Chris Lieben, B, Diego Sanchez, C, Josh Koscheck, or D, Forrest Griffin?
Alien invasions, I think any one of those guys are just crazy enough to be referencing something like that on Twitter. With the December 21st stuff coming up, well, already having happened in New Zealand and Australia and probably Japan by now, but in friggin' half of Europe.
Still here?
Oh yeah. I believe we've had posts from the friends in New Zealand and Australia, so we're good. Things are fine. But in the end, I believe I'll have to go Forrest Griffin. I know he's probably the obvious choice, but yeah, Forrest Griffin.
I have to agree. If it has anything to do with the end of the world, Forrest Griffin, he blew out his knee. He's bored sitting around tweeting. He's probably, this guy, he's a little punchy. He probably sold a couple things thinking it might happen himself. So I'll go with Forrest Griffin as well.
For the sake of keeping this interesting, even though I want to agree, I'm going to say Chris fucking Lieben, even though all of his stuff is just retweeting and business related. Why not? Lieben.
Yeah, I'll keep it interesting as well. It was Griffin, Koscheck, Lieben, and Sanchez.
Yeah.
Sanchez harnesses the power of the ocean, and honestly, if I'm picking between Josh Koscheck and Diego Sanchez, I think even though both are a little crazy, I think Koscheck is far more boring. He only tweets pictures of himself wearing plaid shirts next to Christmas trees. So Diego Sanchez.
Okay. Right, obviously they are all tough one contestants, and obviously the theme is the end of the world. Okay, so it's not Josh Koscheck, and it's not Chris Lieben, and it's not Forrest Griffin.
Holy fuck.
God damn you, Jake. God damn you. I don't care if it's the same team. I hate you.
Here we go again.
Tweet number 2. This is deja vu, isn't it? Tweet number 2. Go crazy today, because we all might not be here tomorrow. And is that A, Mike Pierce, B, Johnny Hendricks, C, Thiago Alves, or D, Jake Ellenberger? Obviously, your UFC welterweight.
Oh, shit. I don't even know if it's my turn, but I'll just take a stab here.
Oh shit! Sorry, I was fucking talking and my microphone was muted like a mook. I was saying I'll go with Mike Pierce because he is a pretty fun Twitter, and Hendricks has been on a tear about not getting the title shot, and the other two guys I just kind of skim over. So yeah, Pierce, why not?
Thiago Alves.
Ramses?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. I know I'm suspecting it was not Mike Pierce because he has a few other things on his mind right now. I don't think he has time to tweet. So it wasn't Mike Pierce. I'll go with, I don't know, Jake Ellenberger. He sounds like just a dull son of a bitch.
I'll go with Johnny Hendricks. The happy beard guy.
You've all gone for someone different then, haven't you? Okay. So it wasn't Mike Pierce. It wasn't Jake Ellenberger. And it wasn't Johnny Hendricks.
Did I get one?
Boo.
It was Thiago Alves.
Did I get one? Oh my god, I forgot how this feels.
We're tied up, Chris.
Yeah, right. Tweet number 3. What time does the world end tomorrow on West Coast time? And it is either A, Vinny Magalhaes, B, Ryan Bader, C, Elliot Marshall, and D, Kyle Kingsbury, which are all tough 8 contestants. And we're back to Patrick.
Yeah, I think I'll probably have to go with Vinny Magalhaes. I think that's just kind of a dumb tweet, and he tweets a lot of stupid shit. So I'll go with Vinny Magalhaes.
What was the second? Vinny, I actually follow him on Twitter. I don't remember seeing that tweet from him. So I'll go with the second choice. I think it was Elliot Marshall. I'll go with that.
Ryan Baker's second, Elliot Marshall's third, Kyle Kingsbury's fourth.
Okay. I'm still sticking with Elliot Marshall. Definitely.
Okay.
I'm going Marshall. Yeah, Elliot Marshall. He seems like a really dull guy, like Raman said earlier about a previous option. So I will stick with Marshall.
Would you read the tweet one more time?
Yeah. What time does the world end tomorrow on West Coast time?
All right. Well, I know Bader lives in Vegas, and I'm pretty sure they're on Mountain Time. I think Marshall's also out in like Colorado or Vegas or Arizona, something like that. I'm not sure about Kingsbury. So between Kingsbury and Magalhaes, Kingsbury seems to have more serious tweets, while Vinny Magalhaes likes to joke around with Renato Laranja and make jokes about whatever he can. So, and I think he's fighting out of California. So yeah, I'll go with my boy P Money and go with Vinny Magalhaes.
Okay, it wasn't Kyle Kingsbury, and it wasn't Ryan Bader, and it wasn't Elliot Marshall. So we've got Jake on 2, Chris and Patrick on 1. And Ramses is watching at the minute.
Yeah.
Right. Tweet number 4. Well, I've got my recovery workout in before the end of the world. These are all UFC featherweights. We've got Dustin Poirier, Eric Koch, Chad Mendes, or Cub Swanson.
I'll go with Eric Koch.
Oof. Cub Swanson.
Oh, is it me?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I thought so.
Oh, sorry, guys. I think Koch as well. That was my first, guess. I'm not sticking with Jake because I think he's going to win. Eric, Bolivian marching powder, Koch.
I will just simply go with Cub Swanson. It's just a shot in the dark. I'm not good at this.
Well, you know what? If everybody's going with Cub Swanson, I certainly can't go against him. That's the hometown boy done good. So, We're picking Cub Swanson.
Okay, so 2 went for Cub and 2 went for Eric. So straight away, it's not Dustin or Chad. It is between Eric and Cub, and it wasn't Cub, and it was Eric. Eric Coke.
That was a complete shot in the dark. How the fuck? How the fuck?
Okay, so we've got it's 3.
You're
3-2-1 now. 3-2-1-0 now, isn't it?
Yep.
Two for me, 2 for
Jake.
3 for Jake, 2 for
One for
Patrick,
Patrick.
1 for Ramen, right?
Yep.
No, none for Ramsey.
I got no points.
Oh,
Rams-
and
I'm calling bullshit.
Gotta stop
Chris?
using that bomba.
Chris, if you want to try this, you need to pick someone different from Jake to take to the tiebreak and hope you get it right and he gets it wrong.
Yeah, your fucking rules.
Okay.
All right.
Alright. Okay, number 5, and these are all Strikeforce fighters, all pretty well high profile Strikeforce fighters. Dear Santa, please have the apocalypse start tomorrow. I know it's a couple of days before Christmas, but this would really make my day. We have options A, Nate Marquardt, B, Tyrone Woodley, C, Tim Kennedy, and D, Luke Rockhold.
Ooh, tough tweet, tough group, all a bunch of Strikeforce standouts. I'll go with the Army Ranger, Tim Kennedy.
I will also go with Tim Kennedy, simply because Luke Rockhold, he's supposed to be faking like he's got a broken hand or something. So what's he going to be doing tweeting shit? Tim Kennedy, definitely.
All right, so it's me? Oh,
Yeah.
Luke Rockhold. Yeah! Woo! Got him.
See, if I was a douchebag, I would just say Luke Rockhold, just because Chris took him and that would lock up the win for me. But I'm going out on a limb. I really like, you know what? I do really like Marquardt, but he does have some boring ass tweets. It's Marquardt, Rockhold, Kennedy, and who else?
Tyrone Woodley.
For the sake of brevity, Ramsey St. Patrick went with Kennedy, Chris went with Rockhold, Marquardt's too boring, and I'll go with that other guy.
Okay. It's not Nate Marquardt, and it's not Tyrone Woodley. So, Chris, you have a chance of tying here, right?
Redemption. I'm probably going to lose.
It's not Luke, it's Tim Kennedy.
Yeah!
You nearly tied it,
Yeah!
Tim. You nearly tied it.
Doing a dance.
Oh,
Right,
boy.
I've got one last one, which is a tie-break one, but we'll just do it for fun. We'll all have a guess. And these are all UFC middleweights. Who says that the world is going to end? All the answers are in the Bible. Nothing is going to happen. The options are A, Hector Lombard, B, Mark Munoz, C, Brian Stan, and D, Vitor Belfort.
I'll go with Mark Munoz.
Vitor Belfort. Fucking churchy.
Well, since it doesn't matter, anyways, I'm going with Munoz. I know he's a very devout Christian, and Vitor, yeah, he also is, but this sounds more, it sounds actually less aggressive than what Belfort would say, because he seems more pushy with it.
And it's not in Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Patrick?
You alright, Patrick?
You alright?
I'm all right. I'm terribly sorry. The snake draft has me confused, but you know what? I got to go with Vitor Belfort. I really agree. He the English, the pushiness. It seems like Vitor.
Okay. I can confirm it's not Brian Stan. And it's not Mark Munoz.
Boop.
And it's not Vitor Belfort. It was Hector Lombard.
Oh, snap. Oh, you crap.
Well done to Jake. That's this week's Tweets of the Week.
And that puts the scoreboard at 6-3. The advantage to Team MMA podcast. Chris, Ray, and Dave with 1 victory. Ramsey sitting on that goose egg, but I bet he'll up it soon. Patrick with 2 and me at 5. I won't brag other than saying I'm the king of the universe. UFC on FX.
Is Chris on 2 or 1? Because you said 6 and you said 5 and 2, which makes 7.
I have 5. I have 5. Patrick has 2. You, Dave, and Chris all have 1. And okay. Ramsey's has 0. That was the 10th that was the
4.
Oh, snap! You're absolutely right. 6'4". I gypped you a little bit there. Yeah, that was the 10th installment of Guess That Tweet, and yeah, I've really had a lot of fun doing it so far. Let us move on past that amazing victory from me to UFC on FX. Soteropoulos versus Pearson. A slew of pretty good fights on that one. I'll go over the prelims and the main card, other than those two big fights you had in Lombard, Palhares, and Pearson, Soteropoulos. You had Cody Donovan defeating Nick Penner, Mike Wilkinson over Brendan Loughnane, Benny Alloway over Manuel Rodriguez, Mike Pierce with a good win against the much bigger Seth Basinski, unanimous decision, Joey Beltran, unanimous decision over Igor Pokrayak, Chad Mendez defeating the Can Yautzin Meza in 1 minute 55 seconds via KO. And your Ultimate Fighter winners, lightweight, you had Norman Park defeating Colin Freakshow Fletcher by unanimous decision. And you had Robert Whitaker defeating Brad Scott via unanimous decision. And we will get to the Lombard and Pearson victories in 1 second. But as far as my favorite moments, both of those Ultimate Fighter finale fights were snoozers. So looking at the finishes, I really did like that KO, that front kick by Benny Alloway with just seconds to go in the first round. I love a front kick. I love a knockout. I love a first round finish. I love a finish with only a few seconds left in the round. And Benny Alloway met all those requirements. So yeah, I'll go with that Benny Alloway knockout. What about you guys?
There were so many great fights in the past 2 weeks since we've done our show. I mean, there's been 3 cards, 31 fights, I believe. And, God, the Soteropoulos Pearson event was fairly spectacular in that manner. Lots of finishes, especially on the prelims. I personally, I liked the Cody Donovan, Nick Penner fight. Good back and forth. Penner had dropped Donovan twice. But the Greg Jackson prospect, he came back and ultimately secured the TKO himself, and he put Penner clean out. I think it was a good showing on really short notice. So big props to Cody Donovan for sure. I pick him as my standout moment for the preliminary portion of the card.
First of all, I've got to disagree with Jake. I personally thought both the finals were quite good. Especially the Whitaker-Scott fight, I thought that was a pretty good fight. I was disappointed that Colin Fletcher lost, but I thought Norman Park worked really hard for that win, and I actually enjoyed the fight. With regards to the prelims, there was some really good moments. I mean, Joey Beltran looked great in his fight. I was surprised that Donovan Penner won fight of the night. I thought that was a ridiculous decision, personally. Alloway's front kick was obviously epic, but my highlight of the night, and it's probably, like you were saying about Darren Cruikshank, probably the same with me with Mike Wilkinson. But I thought Wilkinson Loughnane was such a great fight. I thought it should have been fight of the night, and that was probably my highlight, not just of the prelims, but of the whole card.
Benny Alloway, you're out of your mind if you think anything on that card was better. Yeah, Lombard got a nice clean KO, but as far as just pure brilliance and technique we don't get to see very often, you can't get any better than a front kick to the face with some follow-up punches. That's absolutely fantastic.
That was a damn good fight, but I've got to keep it a little bit real. I saw a classic match go down, a real war go down, a pro versus, well, the Mike Pierce fight against Seth Basinski. That was a grind, and that was the kind of grind where it was just composed of just timing and skill on the part of Mike Pierce, man. And he went at Seth, who someone said earlier was a bigger opponent, on a great win streak in the UFC. Mike Pierce went at him and grinded him in a performance that definitely was Sonnen-like, I have to say. He just fucking kept taking him down, timing it down completely right. Seth didn't have an answer except for kneeing him, which made the whole fight a war. What I'm trying to get at is favorite moment on that fucking card. It had to be when Seth actually kneed Mike Pierce, broke his fucking orbital. If you rewatch again, Mike Pierce is knocked out on his fucking feet. just broken fucking eye socket. Still, he keeps it together. It's in the second round, and he just digs down like you're supposed to, like a real fighter does. Mike Pierce is a real fighter. We all fucking saw it. It was an underrated fight. He should have gotten some sort of fucking bonus for that. He's out for up to 6 months now, just because of facial injuries. He's going to have some reconstructive surgery, but that was a damn good fight. Rewatch it, everybody out there, if you can. Mike Pierce, shout out.
For sure, yeah, that was a real awesome fight. Love seeing the little guy win in a fight where there's a big size difference. Wish we would have seen it with Rory versus BJ, but we didn't. Middleweight fight, we had Hector Lombard going out there with an emphatic TKO victory in the first round up against Husamir Palhares. And the question that I wanted to pose is, where does this put Lombard in the middleweight division? Looking at current fights out there's a lot of options. Lombard said the two guys he wants to face is Michael Bisping, who is going to fight Vitor Belfort in January. I have a feeling that if Bisping wins, he might get a title shot, though, so I don't know if they'll give him Hector Lombard. He also wants to fight Mark Munoz, who had some choice words for him a few months back. Munoz coming off a loss, Lombard obviously coming off this win, so I don't know if Zuffa would want to make that. Thinking about other matches, what I really like, Chris actually came up with the idea on yesterday's episode of the MMA podcast, putting him up against the winner of Alan Belcher versus Yushin Okami. I like that a lot. I think Lombard has interesting stylistic traits to fight both of those guys. So, if Bisping doesn't work out, Munoz. If Munoz doesn't work out, let's see him fight the winner of Belcher and Okami.
Yeah.
P Money dropping out a little bit there. You there, friend?
Yeah, he's still connected to the call. We're just not getting any audio.
Get it together,
call
cocksucker.
dropped.
Get it together, cocksucker. All right, we'll move on to Ray, and he's getting reconnected. We'll give him one more. Failed again. Yeah, let's pass it along to Ray and see if Patrick can get connected by the time Ramses is done. You there, Ray?
Shit.
Holy Christ.
I was on mute.
I was like, they're dropping like flies.
Right, sorry, I was on mute because I wasn't due up yet. Right, firstly, I mean, I don't know if it was on our show or whether I did it on the MMA Mental podcast, but we talked about Palhares, and I basically said in my prediction was that Palhares, when the fight's going well for him, he is awesome. But as soon as something happens he doesn't like, he mentally checks out of the fight.
MMA mentally checks out of the fight.
He did it against Nate Marquardt, and he did it against Alan Boucher, and he did it again. As soon as he got caught and he realised he was in over his head, he just stopped fighting, and Lombard did what I thought Lombard was going to do, which was knock him out in the first round. I mean, Lombard's a beast. He obviously didn't have a great showing against Tim Boetsch, but I think that's down to more how good Tim Boetsch is rather than how bad Lombard is personally. With regards to who's next, I don't mind who he fights next, as long as he carries on fighting top 10 guys, because Lombard is a top fighter, and I want to see the top fighters fight each other. But there's so many good guys towards the top of that division. But I'd be happy with any of the ones you've said: Bisping, Balfour, Mark Munoz, Okami, Boucher. Any guys up near the top. You've obviously got Weidman's going to come back from after his rehab. Anyone like that, I'd be happy to see him fight, as long as he's fighting a top guy. Don't put him in a pointless fight.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, son.
Cool. So Jake brought up the point that I thought Okami, Belcher was a good match, and here's why. Hector Lombard really struggled against a much larger man in Tim Boetsch, and even though a lot of people think he won that fight, he didn't look spectacular. It was his octagon debut. It could have been jitters. There's a litany of reasons why that fight went the way that it did, but I want to see Hector Lombard versus one of the larger men at middleweight, and the perfect solution to that issue is obviously Okami and Belcher. Both are massive middleweights, could probably fight light heavyweight if they wanted to. They're both just giant men. The only other guy besides them that I was thinking, well, who else is at middleweight on a win streak, near the top of the division? Hell, put him in there against Francis Carmont. I think that would be a fucking barn burner.
the fucking Hector Lombard versus Paul Harris fight, it was great. It was the Lombard that everyone was hoping we would see in his last fight. Basically, Hector Lombard, he's definitely earned some street cred now. I mean, in the UFC. His first fight, he got paid $300K, win or lose, under his contract, right? So for that first fight, he played it safe and probably just wanted to make sure that the fucking check was going to cash and it was for real, you know? He's suspicious. He's a suspicious motherfucker, all right? He's had some shady dealings before. But that check fucking cashed, so in the second fight, he fucking delivered. It was pretty fucking nice to see, like, that he wasn't, like, all talk. I mean, like, everyone was saying, oh, but yeah, Hector Lombard has this impressive UFC or MMA record, but that's all just against cans and nobodies. But you saw him knock out Paul Harris. That's fucked up. That was a good fight. Next for him, it's going to be a big name, and he knows it. So I'm not sure why he called out Bisping, since Bisping has a fight coming up, but I have to agree with Lombard. That would be a fucking fun fight to see, him versus Bisping. But Bisping would get he'd get the business worse than Dan Hendo gave it to him, in my opinion.
What?
Yeah, Lombard's he's going to be fighting on a main card again next. That's all I know. That's the word on the street.
Patrick, you with us?
Yes, sir. I'm with you.
There he is. There he is.
How's the drive to the dispensary?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. Had a little
and he's back off. Are you with us, P. Murda Money?
Yes, I'm with you. Had a situation come up, but that's all right. I'm doing the mobile podcast.
Hell yeah! Well, yeah, we were talking about after Lombard's win over Paul Harris, where it puts him. Where do you think Lombard stands in the middleweight division now?
You know what? I think Lombard, he's legit. He does have he has a record of can crushings, but like I was saying, he has a legit skill set. He's got the judo that keeps him upright where he wants to be. Like you guys pointed out, he is a smaller guy. He's coming in at like 5'8". So it's going to be interesting to see where he fights. I mean, Francis Carmon was mentioned. That dude, he's like 6'3", fighting 185. So a fight like that would be real interesting. I'd like to see him up against Munoz or maybe Bisping. Really, anybody towards the top. Let's see what he can do.
Certainly. Yeah, Ray, did you have one more point before we go to the coaches' fight of the Tough Smashes finale?
Yeah, just quickly. I suppose I'm going to be pissing on people's bump fires here, but I must admit I'm not very keen on the idea of Francis Carmont fighting Hector Lombard, only because, for me, I thought Carmont looked awful in his last fight, and I don't think you reward someone after a performance like that with an opponent like Lombard. I think if you want to fight Lombard, you need to earn the right to fight somebody like Lombard. And against Tom Lawler, I thought it was a really, really bad performance. So for me, he's got to. If Carmont wants to be up there, he's got to go and beat someone else impressively.
Powerful, Ray Thompson. Let's move on to the final fight at UFC on FX, Soteropoulos versus Pearson. Ross Pearson looked very good, got that TKO victory against the Aussie, 41 seconds into the third round. He almost finished the fight at points in the first and second round, finally put it together in the final round. And the two topics I wanted to throw out there: what the hell has happened to George Soteropoulos, and where does this put Ross Pearson in the division? As far as Soteropoulos goes, he really was being thought of as one of the top guys in the UFC lightweight division in 2010. He went on, I think, he came into the Ultimate Fighter at that tough finale, beat Billy Miles, won 7 straight fights in the UFC, getting decisions against guys like Kurt Pellegrino, Joe Stevenson, tapped out George Root, Jason Dent, and most impressively Joe Lauzon via Kimura at UFC 123. and he went up against Dennis Seaver, and a lot of guys were saying if he beat Dennis Seaver, he would get a number one contendership fight or a title shot. He was really up there, and since that fight, he lost to Seaver, he lost to Dos Anjos, and now he's lost to Ross Pearson. And I'll give him credit, Seaver is in the top 5 of the featherweights now. Dos Anjos is easily in the top 10 of the lightweight division after his recent victory against Mark Bocek. And Pearson is one of these guys who, like his nickname would suggest, he's the real deal. He's got an iron chin, some real knockout power, and he's sort of back and forth. I think actually since beating Dennis Seaver, he beat Dennis Seaver, lost to Cole Miller, beat Spencer Fisher, lost to Barboza, beat Asuncao, lost to Swanson. Now he's beat Soteropoulos. So really goes back and forth. Seems like one of these guys who can be two different dudes in the ring. So kind of backtracking, Soteropoulos, I think just the win was taken out of his sails when he lost to Dennis Seaver, almost like you saw Mark Hominick get the win taken out of his sails when he lost to Jose Aldo. But it's hard to tell now because Pearson, Dos Anjos, and Seaver are all really good fighters. I want to see him go up against a B or C level fighter next. Arguably, Pearson's a B-level fighter, so maybe a C-level fighter. See if he can get back in the win column. For Pearson, I don't think he's a elite lightweight, just because, like I mentioned, he wins, loses. Lost to Cub Swanson, who's since dropped down to 145. Or actually, I think Pearson was also at 145 when that went down. So, he returned to lightweight to fight Soteropoulos. I don't know if he'll stay at lightweight or move back down to featherweight. But, I don't think of him as elite at this point, but this is definitely a good sign.
Ray?
Yeah, I was just unmuting. Right, just to pick up on some of the points that you brought up. First of all, talking about George. I don't know what's happened with him, to be honest with you, but there was I don't know if you saw a story that came out after the tough season, and I meant to ask Mike Wilson about it, but I didn't. But did any of you see the story about George being knocked out by one of the coaches on the show?
Oh, hell yeah. Tell it.
What?
Right, let me
Tell
bring
it.
this story out then. I'm going to tell you these stories. Right, apparently, there was obviously quite a lot of bad blood on the show. Apparently, George took a pop shot at one of Ross Pearson's coaches, one of the boxing coaches, blindsided him, and the guy turned around and whacked George back and basically knocked George out.
Knocked out.
That was caught off camera, yeah. Apparently, that's what happened during the show.
Wow.
But that's what Ross has said happened. So I thought that was quite interesting. So there was quite a lot of bad blood because Ross didn't shake his hand after the fight. And he come out and said, that's why I didn't shake it, because of what happened during the season. But I want to pick up on some points you were saying about people who George has lost to. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think you talk about Ross and his knockout power. If you look at Ross's record since he's been in the UFC, I'm pretty sure this is his first stoppage victory. I think most of his wins come by decision. He outworks his opponents.
He actually stopped one guy by injury. It was a jaw break at UFC 102 against Aaron Riley.
That's right, Aaron Riley. I do remember that. Yeah, I take that back then. But I knew I knew a lot of the guys had been decisions. So I've never seen Ross as someone with knockout power. He outworks his opponents. So I don't know where it doesn't. For me, Ross is a journeyman. He's never going to be a big impact. He tried featherweight because he thought he'd make a splash there. He didn't make a splash there. He got knocked out quite handily by Cub Swanson. He's never made a splash at lightweight. He'll be maybe an opening fight to the main card, or he'll be fighting on the UK cards. But he's never going to be a big fighter in my opinion. He's never going to make it to the top end of the divisions. As for George, I'll tell you a fight I'd like to see, because George has really dropped down the ladder now. I think he's like you say, he's really fallen from grace. He was on a good run and he was being talked about as a possible contender. I mean, he was one of the favourites to win his season on Ultimate Fighter Season 6, and it should have been him versus Matt Danzig in the final. And he obviously got knocked out in the semis by Tommy Spear, which was a big shock. But I'd like to see George fight, because there was a bit of bad blood on the show between him and Freak Show. And obviously they're both coming off losses. I'd like to see George Soteropoulos take on Colin the Freak Show Fletcher. I think that'd be quite an interesting fight.
Very, very interesting, Ray. I dig it. Ross Pearson, I'm just going to mirror what you said. He has always looked great against B-level fighters and always fails against A-level fighters. So he's a gatekeeper at lightweight or featherweight, whatever weight he wants to go against. So as far as his next step, I mean, we don't even know if he's going to stay at lightweight. I think he said he's staying at lightweight because he just doesn't want to do that weight cut. But as far as, his next fight, I really don't care because it's not going to have any impact in the division. And I'm going to kind of mirror that sentiment with George Sotiropoulos. He can't take a punch anymore. It's been proven. He's been knocked out clean by a coach and 2 fighters in his UFC stint. He got knocked out hard by Tommy Spear on his time on The Ultimate Fighter Season 6. And I think that his biggest problem is that he got too comfortable as a boxer. He boxed up Joe Stevenson, boxed up Kurt Pellegrino. Both guys were on their way out. As it's proven that they're essentially retired. I know Kurt is. Joe Stevenson is still competing, but obviously not against high-level competition. If he went back to his grappling roots, I could see him being a gatekeeper. But as far as his next fight, I really don't care. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference to me, the divisional standings, or the company.
I have to agree with Chris and my man Ray from MMA Mental. What happened to George Sotiropoulos? He said it best. It was the fucking secret knockout that happened to George Sotiropoulos. He got a loss via SKO, all right, secret knockout during the filming of The Ultimate Fighter from one of the coaches. So they kept that hush hush. You see, the UFC can bury some shit. I mean, a concussion, like a knockout, a fight before a fight, like they buried that shit so deep. Even I didn't have the word on the street. All right, that's when you know it's fucking just locked away somewhere. But that's what happened to George. Jesus, the fact that it was a coach, that's embarrassing. I don't know where he goes from here. It's not going to be any place good, that's for damn sure. As far as Pearson is concerned, he's not going anywhere except like a main card, like pay-per-view in the UK whenever the next one is. Like his record in the past 2 years, it just doesn't hold up or put him anywhere near title contendership. So if I had to guess, Ross Pearson, fuck it, he'll fight. Like I said before, Gray Maynard or Joe Lozon. I just want to see somebody fight fucking Gray Maynard whenever he heals up, basically. That's what should be next for Ross Pearson.
Is Patrick with us? Patrick,
P
did he drop? P Money. Did he drop out again?
Dropped. He's not dropped. He's still here, but for some reason, he's not talking. He may be inside the dispensary at this point, purchasing.
He's probably dead.
Sacrament.
He is either dead or.
Okay. Resuscitation. Okay. Oh, he might well be dead.
Again.
Yeah, you're fading.
Very much. Very much like
You're fading in and out there, Patrick. Maybe try and get to a better connection.
thing is, I mean, heck, I don't know what more can be.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
This is like trying to play UFC Undisputed on a PS3 online server.
Yeah, he's cutting in and out. Maybe we can.
He's dropped.
All right. Well, let's give him a few seconds, see if he can pop back on with a better connection. But it was a really, really great fight. Pearson really put the action on Sotiropoulos, and Ray, I actually really like that matchup of Freak Show Fletcher versus Sotiropoulos. I actually haven't watched the smashes yet, but I did hear about that bad blood, and
You're missing out, dude.
Yeah, and I feel like a C-level fighter like Freak Show would be a perfect match, and I don't know if we've ever seen a coach fight a fighter on The Ultimate Fighter immediately after the season taped. I remember I sort of wanted to see Rampage.
Immediately before, can you remember who it was?
No, I can't.
We've seen it happen. We had a contestant knock out a coach, and then they went on to be contestant and coach on the season, and the fight happened before. If anyone can remember who that was, a bit of trivia for you.
Ooh.
Was it?
Wait, can you start over? I missed that.
Yeah,
first part.
so on a previous season of Ultimate Fighter, a little bit of trivia. Before the season started, there was a fight in the octagon, and the guy who went on to be a contestant knocked out the coach.
Was it Art
can you work out
Jimerson
who it
and
was?
Royce Gracie?
It's easy.
No.
Joe Lozon and Jens
There
Paul.
you go. There you go. Well done, Chris.
Oh, true that. Yeah, Lauzon did knock the piss out of Jens Pulver, and I guess Patrick is out. So we'll move on to the Tough 16 finale, the Ultimate Fighter America finale, 16th season of that. He's joining back right as I move on. I'll give him a chance. The clock's running out.
He's not joining.
Okay.
I added the fucker.
True that. Well, yeah, let's go over this Tough 16 finale. Lots of good stuff on that. And, of course, I don't have that card pulled up, but now I do. No, I just pulled it up. Lots of pretty cool fights, just because of time, because we've already been breaking down these cards for an hour and a half. The only one we're going to focus on is Nelson Mitrione. P-Money, you back?
I am back in full effect.
What did you think about Pierce?
Emergency here. Which fight?
You're still cutting in and out there, buddy.
I think we should just wait. We should carry on without Patrick and wait for Patrick to get back home. Because obviously, wherever he is, he's got no connection on his phone.
All right, Patrick. Yeah, you're cutting in and out. So, like I said, we're only going to cover Nelson Mitrione in depth, but looking at all the other fights, they were all pretty good, and I wanted to know what was your favorite moment. Tim Elliott defeating Jared Papazian, Mike Rio defeating John Kofer by submission, Hugo Vienna, Wolverine defeating Ruben Duran by first round knockout, TJ Waldberger over Nick Catone by a technical submission, and Rustam Kalibov defeating Vince Pichel via suplex knockout, Johnny Bedford defeating Marcus Vinicius by KO, Mike Pyle defeating James Head by TKO. Lots of finishes on this one. Ruben Duran, I'm glad you liked that one, Chris. Dustin Poirier with the first round Darce choke over Jonathan Brookins. Pat Barry defeating Shane Del Rosario in the second round. And Colton Smith defeating Mike Ricci in an upset to become the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 16. My favorite, it was very close. A close second was TJ Waldberger with that technical submission, just because I love me a technical submission, seeing a guy get choked silly. And yeah, my favorite moment was Rustam Kalibov with that KO suplex. I love me a slam KO, and that's what we saw. That was beautiful. Kabalov, yeah, I don't know how the fuck to say that. Kajamaz. But yeah, that suplex was my favorite moment.
That suplex was amazing. As good as it was a trifecta of suplexes. Here's a question for you guys. When is the only other time in a fight where you had 3 suplexes in one round? Anybody?
That would be
I remember 2.
Matt Hughes versus David, Canadian guy.
No,
Matt Hughes isn't a suplexer. Matt Hughes was a slammer.
So, Ray, you got any idea?
I remember Dan Severn delivering 2. Obviously in his early fights.
No, 3. 3 in
yeah,
one round.
I'm just saying. I remember Dan Severn delivering 2. Was this in the UFC?
It was in the UFC.
Dong Young Kim versus Brock Lesnar.
Yum Kim.
Roy McDonald, Nate Diaz.
There you go, buddy. Hey,
damn,
Ray Thompson.
Ray Thompson going MMA mental on us.
Yeah.
All right, so as far as favorite moments, that suplex was just absolutely mental. I mean, I just had a headache
MMA mental.
after that.
MMA mental.
Yeah, really.
I tried that time.
I really, really enjoyed it, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it is a 3-way tie between that suplex, Mike Pyle putting it to James Head, a guy that I thought was going to run through Mike Pyle, and obviously TJ Waldberger putting Nick Catone to sleep while elbowing him to the head, a la Anderson Silva.
All right, I do have the favorite moment. It was going to be James Head getting TKO'd in the first round by Mike Pyle, just because I just personally have a grudge against James Head. He squeaked out a decision against one of my favorite fighters, Brian Ebersol, last time. That was a bullshit decision. Brian Ebersol took that fight on like 8 days' notice or some shit. Fuck you, James Head. You got knocked out in the first round by Mike Pyle. Fuck you. But the favorite moment, I have to say, was the Khabilov suplex, the knockout. That was very impressive. But I'm just real quick. I just want to ask each of you, just real quick. That was my favorite moment. What is the difference between that fucking suplex knockout and a head spike? I mean, realistically, do you think there's a difference between that and an illegal head spike? Because head spiking is illegal. What do you guys think?
What order?
Jake, Chris, and Ray. What do you think? Should suplexes that knock you on your head, doesn't that count as a head spike? Go.
I think there's a difference between a suplex like that and a direct head spike. I think a head spike has got to be more of a vertical motion, where they definitely were moving more horizontally than vertically. And I actually saw Kazabov or Kambalov, whatever the fuck his last name is.
Campbell Soup.
Campbell Soup tweeted last night. It was a pretty funny quote. He said, my job is to throw him. His job is to figure out where he needs to land. And it's kind of true. Obviously you can't just pick up a guy and spike him on his head, which is more of a vertical motion. But I think it's all in that direction of which way the suplex is going.
Yeah, and I'll expand on his point. Great point, Jake. It's 12-6. That's what spiking is. What Alan Belcher did to Patrick Cote, that is the perfect example of a head spike. Now, the reason why it's less dangerous to do this kind of arcing suplex is because of the range of motion that your neck, your shoulders, and your head can actually do in that position. When you're coming straight down, you're compounding on your spine, which could lead to a break or damage. When you're going arcing and horizontally instead of vertical, your body actually has more avenues to what's a good word here? To shift the energy. You know what I mean? Like your head can roll, your neck can roll, your body can roll. So it's much less dangerous in this fashion.
I can't really add anything to what you two said, but yeah, I like the 12-6 thing. I think I can agree with that, but I can see where Ramsey's coming from though, because it is dangerous to land like that. And we've even seen guys who have done the suplex themselves and knocked themselves out. Now I know we're all throwing trivia. Can anyone name the two guys that that are in my head anyway that knocked themselves out? One in UFC, one in Pride.
Absolutely. It's Matt Lindland knocked himself out. Gray Maynard knocked himself out with a suplex. And
yes, that's true, actually. Who's the
Mark McGuire. Mark McGuire.
In Pride?
Right?
Mark McGuire, man. I didn't know
you got Mark right, but not McGuire.
It's Mark Coleman.
Nope. There's only one of the Mark.
Mark Wahlberg.
The Smashing Machine.
Mark Kerr.
Mark Kerr. He DDT'd himself. Knocked out against the Japanese guy.
Thank you, Ray.
I Dutch ovened myself yesterday. Go ahead, Ramses.
Oh, I'm just saying, Ray's dropping straight up knowledge there, man. That is some MMA mental shit, man, dude. He's got it in his fucking back pocket of his mind. That is fucked up.
Dude, he's got a fucking system that ranks people going all the way back to the early 2000s. You are crazy. Jake
1993 going back to.
Yeah, Jake thinks that I'm autistic for my knowledge. Oh, that's just because I can pull it out of my head, but Ray has a very clinical system of Excel spreadsheets and notebooks.
If Chris is autistic, then Ray is straight up retarded.
MMA retarded.
I'm going to change the name of my website to MMA retarded. Right, I'm going to
MMA mentally retarded.
I'm going to jump back on topic. We were talking about the favourite moments of the card before you started hammering me for my knowledge. Some of the moments stood out to me. I have to say, some of the ones you were talking about as being shocks weren't shocks to me. Colton Smith versus Mike Ricci. I watched the whole of that season. I didn't understand what the hype was about Ricci. I think on the show he had one good showing, which is when he landed the standing elbow, which was pretty impressive. Colton Smith was the most consistent guy on that show. He won all of his fights the same way. He's a wrestler. I personally found him exciting to watch. His fight with Eddie Ellis won fight of the season, which I think was the right call. I picked that bang on. Carlton Smith to win by unanimous decision. Wrestlers are a nightmare to fight against, and Ricci just couldn't cope with the wrestling. So that went kind of the way I thought it would go. And someone said about James Head running through Mike Pyle. Again, I had Mike Pyle to win that fight, and I'm pretty sure Mike Pyle was the favourite. I didn't think he'd win like that, but I did think that he would win. There's a couple of guys on the card as well who I'd actually interviewed going in, and it was great to see some of them do well. I mean, I'd interviewed Vince Pichel, so I was obviously gutted to see him lose, but I'd interviewed TJ Waldberger and Johnny Bedford, so it was really good to see them two pick up nice wins. I was a bit surprised with the technical submission because Gattoni's arm was free, and then all of a sudden he puts his arm across his own neck and he kind of choked himself out, which I thought was a bit daft. But I mean, it was a great submission by Waldberger. But for me, the highlight of the night of the fights we're looking at, it had to be the Rustam Khabilov. I mean, those suplexes were just mental.
mental.
I mean, I think the fight lasted, we've got it here, 2 minutes 45 seconds. He landed 3 powerful suplexes in that time. And I don't know how Vince Pichel lasted as long as he did, to be honest with you. He just ragdolled him. It was just amazing.
Can I bring something up real quick, Ray?
Yeah.
You talked about Abel Trujillo. You want to see him fight Tim Means, correct?
Yeah.
What about Abel Trujillo versus Campbell Soup?
You know what? When I watched Abel Trujillo and then I watched Campbell Soup, I thought to myself, how exciting is the bottom end of this? Because these guys are kind of towards the bottom, the lower tier of the division. They're just coming in on their debuts. How exciting is the bottom end of this division? And then, I mean, I think Carlton Smith's going to drop down to lightweight. You've got, obviously, we've got Freak Show and Norman Park that battled himself to the rankings now as well, kind of down at that level. I just think there's some great fighters at lightweight, all the way down, right from the top, right down to the bottom in the UFC. I think it's so exciting.
Definitely. And we'll move on from that card to the main event. Roy Nelson defeating Matt Mitrio via TKO 3 minutes in, and it was kind of funny because from the beginning of the fight, the way Mitrione was just straight up avoiding Nelson's shot, and the way Nelson was getting in there every 10 to 15 seconds and launching off those home run punches, you knew Roy Nelson was going to get the KO eventually, and he did. And the question I wanted to propose to you guys is, what do you think's next for Roy Nelson? Because it really seems like Roy, a lot of fighters, it's a vague line on where they sit in their division, but Roy, it's pretty defined. He's fought top guys recently in Junior Dos Santos, Frank Mir, and Fabricio Verdum, losing all those fights by very one-sided unanimous decisions. All of those fights were more characterized by Roy Nelson being able to take a beating better than anything else, especially in the Dos Santos fight. Verdum looked very crisp in his fight against Roy Nelson. Nelson really had nothing for him. And in all his other fights, he knocks dudes out, whether it's Brendan Schaub, Stefan Struve, Crow Cop, Dave Herman, Mitrione. Nelson is one of these guys, if he's fighting a guy in the top 5, like a Kane, Alistair, Verdum, Mir, Dos Santos, it's going to be a decision lost. And if he fights anyone else, it's going to be a KO win. So I say give him a top 10 guy, maybe a rematch against Struve. I don't have a list in front of me of the top 10 heavyweights and who they fight next. But it's a very weird spot for Nelson because it seems like either he's going to fight a guy worse than him and knock him out, or he's going to fight a guy better than him and just get bullied for 3 rounds to a decision.
Yeah, who's next for Roy Nelson? Let's all face it, nobody cares what's next for Big Country Roy Nelson. I don't
say the truth, brother.
All right. He's not going to go for a title shot. They're not going to get. Can you imagine a day in your life going by knowing that Roy Nelson is the fucking heavyweight champion of the UFC? Can you imagine his fucking slovenly ass sitting around with that belt around his oversized waist, just drinking beer, just making YouTube videos, doing interviews with Ariel Helwani with the belt? No, it's never going to happen. Even Roy knows it. That's why he's not fucking calling out the fucking champion. He's not. He's just basically going to do some big name, big money fights. I hate to keep using the word, but Roy Nelson is another just gatekeeper of his fucking division. He's not going to get a title shot. I don't think he deserves it. He's not asking for it. That's probably why he doesn't deserve it, because he's not going after it. He's just being a fighter in the UFC, just living paycheck to paycheck, basically. But it was an impressive knockout, definitely.
Powerful.
I personally like Big Country. I look forward to his fights because whether he wins or loses, the fights tend to be exciting because of his style. There's a rematch I wouldn't mind seeing him taking, because he did lose the fight originally, but he wasn't physically good. So he wasn't in good shape for the fight. Now I know obviously Nelson's known for not being in shape, or he doesn't look in shape, but a lot of time he's got good cardio and he can fight quite good for 15 minutes. When he fought against Frank Mir, he was really bad in that fight. He wasn't even in the normal shape that he was in for this fight. So I wouldn't mind him seeing a rematch with Frank Mir, because I think that's a fight he could really win, because he has that one-punch power that Frank Mir doesn't.
Certainly, Chris.
But yeah, I thought his performance against Mick Drone was really good, and I like to have a little bit of a flitter on the UFC. And three events in 7 days was good for me, because I ended up winning £450, which I was very happy with.
Nice. For sure.
Nice.
Chris?
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that, guys. I stood up and it yanked my headset out, and then the audio went to my speakers and then went back. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
It's all right there. It's all
Big
right.
Country.
Yeah. So, Ray, you were kind of talking about Big Country looking kind of sloppy sometimes, but he has the cardio to go really hard. What I wanted to say is that Big Country will always make A-minus level fighters and below look, completely average. And beyond that, he's never ever going to sniff that title. He does have massive power. He's got this awesome style to where he can bait his opponents into thinking something is coming and then throw that looping overhand right. When they're throwing something, he has such awesome timing that he throws that overhand right over, boom, catches him. Did it to Herman. Did it to Mitrione. He that right hand is just not only does it have power, but he has timing. And one thing,
Powerful.
Yeah, powerful, Big Country. One thing that I wanted to kind of expand on, you talked about the Frank Mir fight. Apparently, after that fight, Frank Mir went to the hospital and had to get his jaw fixed because it was broken. Big Country actually broke Frank Mir's jaw at UFC 130, so he does have that crazy power. And I don't really give a shit who he fights next. He's never ever gonna fight for a title. He's proven that he'll lose to top level guys, top of the shelf. And if you put him in there against Velasquez, Overeem, Dos Santos, and Struve, where he's at now, I just don't see him actually winning at all.
For sure. I like all those points brought up, especially talking about all those secondary points on the Tough 16 recap. But it's about time we move on to the news. And before the news, how about we bust out our boneheads of the week? Y'all ready?
Let's go.
Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do.
My bonehead of the week is Mike Ricci. I really enjoyed you guys talking about him shopping for hipster and Paddington Bear type clothes over at Hot Topic. But that's not what I'm going to rant about. Mike Ricci was recently on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, a podcast that I really, really enjoy. And he was on there for a good amount of time, and he just seemed grumpy. Ariel would make jokes, and Ricci would just kill it with his lack of humor and grumpiness. But the one moment that really kind of stood out to me was him talking about The Ultimate Fighter and him saying it was the most miserable 6 weeks of his life, that he was institutionalized, that producers came up to him afterwards and said, in 12 years of The Ultimate Fighter, this has negatively affected you more than anyone else. He was saying, oh yeah, I was ready to just wake up at 2 a.m. and spar in the backyard. It was so horrible. I was institutionalized. I was on this schedule, and now when I watch The Ultimate Fighter, I find myself frowning because it was such a horrible time in my life, and I hate it. Dude, you're the one who signed up for it, and you could leave at any week you wanted to. and you decided not to, don't give me all this bullshit about the Ultimate Fighter being horrible and you would sue him if you really wanted to. No, shut the fuck up. They gave you a great opportunity and you're just being a grumpy hipster about it. Buck up, be a man, and yeah, you know what? It does suck. And most people you ask about the Ultimate Fighter, they're going to say it sucks. You're stuck with a bunch of savages in a house for 6 weeks. But you know what? This is the UFC giving non-UFC guys the chance of a lifetime. So, you know what? If you don't like it, leave. Don't go on the MMA Hour and bitch about the UFC giving you the opportunity of a lifetime.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. Mike Ricci is a fucking bitch. Nut up or shut up, dude. Like, yeah, it fucking sucks. All right. So my bonehead of the week is the entire cast of Tough 17, Jones versus Sonnen. Dana White came out to promote the show saying, oh, this season, you hear it all the time. There's this one guy on the show, and he's just like Felipe Novaire from, Tough Season 8. He's so scary that every single guy in the house is scared of him. One of the guys that was matched up with him actually had a nervous breakdown in the house. He sends everyone to the hospital. Really? You guys are going to sign up for this season and see a guy do well and be scared of him? You're supposed to be in there training your fucking butt off and preparing for the biggest fight of your life every single time you fight on that show. I don't have to do it. I don't have any combat sports record. But I'll tell you what, if you're on reality TV on FX and you're going to come across as scared, you probably shouldn't be there. The sport is full of alpha males, and we've gotten to the point where we have a bunch of betas on the Ultimate Fighter. It's time to scrap the format or do a better screening process, because that's just ridiculous. That's a bonehead move.
Oh man, I wish I could tell you how wrong you are about calling out the Tough 17 cast, man. They're gonna provide you with so many entertaining fucking epic fights that you've never seen on a season of The Ultimate Fighter. I have that word on the street, legit. Yeah, there is some dude that is straight up putting you in the hospital. He's giving everybody that fucking supper was cold tonight, bitch, that treatment. All right, that's legit. I won't say which team he was on. I'll just skip to that. My bonehead of the week is Steve Mazzagatti. Referee Steve Mazzagatti. I'm sure he's been the bonehead of the week several times before. This is my first time having the privilege of calling him out. Thank you to the MMA podcast. But Steve Mazzagatti, he fucked up. He had the worst call of the entire weekend, the past week of fights, when he, Colton Smith delivered a goddamn nut shot to Mike Ricci during their fucking fight, the Ultimate Fighter finale. It was a goddamn ball shot, a kick to the balls, right in the groin. It was obvious. There was no way you could miss it. But guess what? The closest man to them somehow fucking missed it. Once again, Steve Mazzagatti. Bad call. Mikey Ricci, the word on the street was that Colton was going to go after him dirty. I had that info just from a lot of people. I tried to even warn Mikey Ricci, but you know what I'm saying. You don't want to fuck with the fighter's head before a fight. But the dirty move happened. Steve Mazzagatti, luck of the draw, bad referee to have, worst one if you're fighting. He missed it completely. Even if you replay it, even Joe Rogan's calling him out. Just how could he have missed that? It's fucking embarrassing. So that's it. Steve Mazzagatti, bonehead of the week, missing the nut shot that hurt Mike Ricci. He should have gotten a timeout. Who knows? Maybe it would have made, because it did go to a decision. Maybe that would have been the entire fight. Maybe that would have swept the entire fight another way. Who knows? Steve Mazzagatti, fuck you, bonehead.
The worst thing was as well was he actually went towards the fighters and then went back. Before I say about my bonehead, I'm talking about referees there. I want to shout out the referee. I don't know his name, but the referee who was refereeing the Benny Alloway Manny Rodriguez fight, because he made a bit of a blunder during the fight, but he was man enough to step up and reverse his decision on the cage and let the fight go on, and obviously that led to the knockout, because he missed an eye poke and he called the fight because he thought it wasn't an eye poke, and then he realised it was, and he reversed it, which I thought was a really good thing to do. So I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I wanted to shout him out. Well, that was pretty good. Right, my bonehead of the week is I've been a bit miffed over these last three events, which is with the UFC, because we've had three brilliant I've had some great moments. I've been really surprised with the bonuses. First of all, we had Care of the Night going to EZ Edwards, who I don't want to take away from EZ, but for me, Darren Cruikshank's kick was much better. Then you had the fight of the night that at the Tough Smashes finale that should have gone to the 3-round war between Loughnane and Wilkinson, and they gave it to a 1-round fight between Penner and I can't remember what the guy's name, Penner and Donovan, which I thought was a strange decision. And then you had the knockout of the night that went to, who did it go to? It went to Pat Barry, again a great knockout. But how did Vince Bichal not get it, or his opponent not get it for those
Campbell
two duplexes? Rustam Kabilov. So Campbell Soup, yeah. So for me, I'm going to call out the UFC on their decision making for the bonuses. I'm not feeling that at all. Patrick.
Yeah, for my bonehead of the week, I'm going to have to go with Joe Silva. It was just announced recently that Robbie Lawler is coming back to the UFC, and he's fighting Josh Koscheck. This is a really questionable move, if you ask me, considering Robbie Lawler, as exciting as he is, he's a great fighter. He went 3-5 in Strikeforce, though. He's coming off a loss to Lorenz Larkin. I don't know how he's getting matched up with a perennial. I mean, you could easily say Koscheck is 5 year-round. I don't know how he landed this fight. Maybe it's just the injury bug has forced a lot of these matchups to be made. Hopefully they give him another shot after this one. I don't give Robbie Lawler much more than a puncher's chance in this one, so I don't know what Joe Silva's doing. I'm giving him my Bonehead of the Week nomination.
Definitely. As far as all those boneheads, I'll go ahead and give it to Chris's. Ramsey's, they might be some tough guys. It might be a great season, but if Dana White is indeed telling the truth and guys are scared, I don't think George is hurt. I think he's scared, and I don't think the cast of The Ultimate Fighter is hurt. I think they're scared. And just you can't be scared of one dude. I don't care how badass he is. Come on, son. So mine will be the Tough 17 cast.
As much as I hate bad matchmaking, really annoying hipsters, and horrible reffing, what I hate most is people not getting the chance that they should be allowed. I'm going with Ray for the UFC, totally being a bonehead over these bonus checks for coaches' challenges, etc. There's no reason why they shouldn't do it. I mean, it seems like a money-saving ploy. You got these guys that are doing real well on one of the best seasons of The Ultimate Fighter ever in the Tough Smashes. So I'm going to go ahead and side with Ray.
Patrick's got a good pick there. Joe Silva, I love you to death, but setting up Lawler versus Koscheck, that's everybody know. Oh man, who the fuck is gonna bet on Robbie Lawler? That's an easy one. It's not even a squeezer. It's just one for the fans. It's basically a tune-up fight for Koscheck. We all know it. So yeah, for being that obvious, I'll have to slide and kind of say Joe Silva Bonehead of the Week as far as the other pick goes.
I'm going to vote on Ramses. I think that what I didn't like about Mazagatti was the fact he went towards the guys and then backed off. So he obviously saw something because he went towards them, and then for whatever reason he just fluffed the call. So I'd be voting for Steve Mazagatti as the Bonehead of the Week.
And as someone who loves to bag on Steve Mazzagatti myself, it's hard for me not to pick him as Bonehead of the Week since I can't vote for myself. So be that as it may, I will also vote Steve Mazzagatti.
And once again, we got a tie on Bonehead of the Week between Mazzagatti and the UFC for those bonus checks. Once again, we just cannot...
Bonus checks only got one vote.
Yeah, actually, it's not a tie. Yeah, it really isn't.
Mazzagatti is
a winner.
Okay, Mazzagatti is our Bonehead of the Week, and I'm your secondary Bonehead. And I'm the secondary Bonehead for not keeping up with it. So let's hit up a few news stories and then ship this baby out. Probably the biggest news was these 3 welterweight matches made for UFC 158, March 16th in Montreal. They're going to be epic as shit. You have George St. Pierre versus Nick Diaz, Johnny Hendricks fighting Jake Ellenberger, and Rory McDonald versus Carlos Condit. The two topics I want to throw out there, what are your early thoughts on all three of these fights, and which one is your favorite of the three? For me, I think St. Pierre is going to take the Benson Henderson strategy and quell Nick Diaz, but it will be a fun build-up to that fight for sure. I think Hendricks is going to keep his streak going. Look out for the first round KO once again. Rory McDonald, Carlos Condit. You know, I said Condit yesterday on the MMA podcast, but I think I'm going to switch my pick and go with Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald dominated a majority of that fight. He's younger. In my opinion, he's probably gotten better since, even though Condit trained his ass off for GSP. So my three winners there are St. Pierre, Hendricks, and McDonald. And of those three, which is my favorite, man, I think St. Pierre, Diaz, and Hendricks Ellenberger are going to be fun, but I think the closest match is going to be McDonald-Condit. I'm not picking McDonald by a lot. I think Condit really has, like we talk about a lot, he has a giant toolbox of stuff to pick out from, and he could easily win this fight. So even though it has the least title implications, the one I'm most looking forward to is Rory McDonald versus Carlos Condit. What about you guys?
For myself, I love all these matches. These really are some really fun matches. St. Pierre Diaz, it's going to be good. I don't think Pierre looked good against Condit. Of course, there's the ring rust. There's a layoff. Who knows? I'm going to root Diaz all day. Hendricks Ellenberger, that's just a fantastic fight. These guys are almost mirror images of themselves. Great wrestling, dynamite stand-up, insane power in the hands. Only difference is Ellenberger's been knocked out. Hendricks hasn't. He's had some split decisions that gone his way. I don't think he beat Koscheck, even though it was a close fight. I do think he beat Pierce, so I think that split decision was good. Great fight, though. Impossible for that one to suck, in my opinion. And then McDonald Condit, that's going to be a good one. It was a fantastic fight the first time around. Rory McDonald, he showed a lot of talent there. We've seen that talent grow since that loss. Like I said earlier, I think he'll come back and win that one. As for which one is my favorite, I have to go with Hendricks Ellenberger. I mean, I don't know how that fight won't deliver. Those guys, they just go for broke. And I really feel someone's getting knocked out, or it's just going to be an insane 3-round war. No way that one can disappoint. That's got to be my favorite.
Right, my quick thoughts on the fights. I think all three of the fights are brilliant fights. I mean, it's 6 of the best guys in that division. GSP versus Diaz. GSP does what GSP does. GSP knows how to win a fight. He knows how to grind out a fight. We've seen in the past, as good as Nick Diaz is, he doesn't like wrestlers. I've seen him lose to some really low-level guy wrestlers, not for a while, but I mean, I remember watching him lose to Joe Riggs. So St. Pierre's going to have his way.
And Sean Shirk.
This fight shouldn't be happening, really. It's a bit of a joke of a fight, I think, but it will happen, and St. Pierre will dominate him for 5 rounds, and it will be a 50-45 across all the cards, and and that's how that's going to go. Hendricks Ellenberger, as good as Ellenberger is, I've got to question his cardio. The guy is probably good for 7 or 8 minutes, and he runs out of steam. I think I can see maybe he'll make it to the second round, but I think Hendricks will end up knocking him out when he gets tired. Hendricks will make it a grueling fight, and Hendricks has got cardio for days. I've never seen that guy look tired. Mind you, most of the time his fights only last 10 seconds. That probably helps. And then McDonald Condit, I mean, their first fight was brilliant. I think this fight's going to be brilliant again. I think the difference in this fight is McDonald won't run out of steam like he did in the last time. But the fight I'm most excited for out of them three is McDonald Condit, and the winners for all three will be GSP, Hendricks, and McDonald.
Well, McDonald Condit is a rehash. I think it's a needless rematch. It doesn't make sense. You have a guy on a huge win streak versus a guy coming off a loss from a title fight. Screw that. It's a needless rematch. Hendricks versus Ellenberger. We can all agree that Ellenberger has some awesome skills, but he's a one-trick pony. If you get past that second round with him, he's gassed. He is prone to gassing really bad because he throws so much power into his shots. I got Johnny Hendricks in this fight easily. At second round finish, first round finish, doesn't matter. And then St. Pierre versus Diaz. As much as I hate that matchmaking, Hendricks should have gotten that fight. St. Pierre is coming off of his return fight, and he's looking for redemption against a guy that's talked a lot of shit about him, says he's a coward, etc. And I think that Nick Diaz is coming off of a layoff this time, so that's what makes it compelling. I'm most excited for St. Pierre Diaz.
Okay, GSP, he didn't fucking convince me in his last fight, all right? He came out of the fight looking more beat up than Carlos Condit. I mean, the only question I have left is whether or not GSP honestly thinks he beat Condit straight up. Because, like I said, conspiracy. Condit did hold back, he didn't attack GSP's weak knee. I won't even go there. But I'm just saying, I don't even believe that St. Pierre called out Diaz. I don't believe that story. What I think happened is he demanded $50 million for Anderson Silva. The UFC said, "Fuck you. We're gonna throw fucking Nick Diaz at you now." How do you like that deal? And I think he's stuck with it. He's got to prove himself once again. It is going to be a big money fight. I don't know why he is even trying to pump it up. I don't think it's going to go well for GSP. As far as the Hendricks and Ellenberger fucking match, I have no reason to suspect that we won't. We're just going to see another flash knockout from nowhere out of Johnny Hendricks. That's all I got to say about that one. And the Rory McDonald versus fucking Carlos Conduit rematch, I think it should happen just because Rory called him out right after the BJ Penn win. It's got to happen. Good story there. The fans want to see it. That's fine. But I have no more confidence in Condit. But he does still have the slight edge, in my opinion. Honestly, Rory McDonald might just give this one up, just to avoid being in GSP's title shot range for now. And another conspiracy.
Black Hawk helicopters.
Yep, Zuffa, they owe Condit a fucking favor, all right. By not crushing that GSP knee, he saved a fucking $10 to $15 million a year enterprise in the UFC. Good chunk of the pay-per-views, if you know what I'm saying. So Condit has a win coming. I think he'll just destroy Rory. He did it once. He can do it again. Word on the street.
Word on the street. Let's because Ray actually has to take off along with Patrick. Our two MMA mentalists are going to hop off after this theme. But really quick before you hop off, Ray, you want to give one more shout out to the Fight Busters and MMA Mental?
Absolutely, yeah. And before I do that, I just want to, speaking to Ramses here, actually, because he mentioned Brian Ebersole earlier on, and I was lucky enough, actually, about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I got to interview Brian Ebersole, and I was really pleased that he agreed to come on the show. I was quite surprised because he's quite a charismatic guy. I weren't sure if he'd come on or not, but he did come on. He was brilliant. And Patrick couldn't do the interview, so it was just me and Brian for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It was a really good interview. And a little funny story for you. I went on Facebook probably about 2 weeks ago, and I'm obviously friends with Brian Ebersole on Facebook because we've done the interview. And actually, he'd actually put on his Facebook wall, he put a link to the YouTube. It's on YouTube as well, to the video. And he said, "Here's an interview I did with Ray Thompson from MMA Mental." I just thought that was pretty cool.
That's mental, man.
How did I miss that? He is one of my top favorite fighters. What
I'll do after I've finished off here, I'll go and I'll tweet you the link and I'll send you the link so you can listen to his interview.
Oh, you're goddamn right you will. I'll fucking retweet that shit. I'll get off the goddamn Skype call right now to listen to Brian Ebersole interview with Ray Thompson, man, from MMA Mental. Shout out.
And the line at the end of the interview was, because obviously he's known as the White Anderson Silva. And I said to him at the end of the interview, because he'd had some good wins and he'd shown off, I said, maybe they'll start calling Anderson Silva the Black Brian Ebersole, and he did laugh at that. He liked that line. But yeah, it's really good.
Beautiful.
I definitely will listen to that tonight. I will get stoned and listen to that. Ray from MMA Mental. Tweet that to me immediately, man. And just one more thing about Brian Ebersole, just a little fact here. You know how like Joe Rogan's saying, like, and everybody's saying, like, you haven't seen him be submitted by a choke. You know, he's like immune to the choke. Like he's like, for some reason, he just fucking just stamina through that shit. It was just a fun fact that the last time he'd been choked out in an MMA fight was when Stephan Bonner fought him. And it was Stephan Bonner's first fight as an MMA professional. He choked out Brian Ebersole. That's a UFC fun fact, little known. But yeah, I'll listen to that interview. Thanks, Ray.
No problem, I'll get it over to you. Right, obviously I'll do Fight Busters and I'll just do a shout out. So check out our podcast this week. It was our last one of the year, and we had Mike the Warrior Wilkinson on, and we talked about the Tough Smasher series. I asked him about his his take on the whole mobile phone incident, which obviously people will know about who watched the show, and what his thoughts were on the way the UFC dealt with it. I asked him what he thought about the fact that the UK lightweights were so good, but the UK welterweights were so bad. And he had a take on that, which was interesting. And then we also spoke to Ryan Jimmo, who obviously will be fighting against James Tahuna in the UK on the card at Wembley, which I'm obviously going to because I'm an MMA geek. So we talked to him about that, which was interesting. Also, Mike Wilkinson actually agreed to do Fight Busters with me, which Fight Diaries with me, which was brilliant. But he's actually the second UFC guy that agreed to do it with me recently, because Ulysses Gomez agreed to do it with me, to meet up and do it with me as well. And he actually agreed to meet me in the hotel after the fight, and I'm going to do a face-to-face interview with him as well, which obviously I'm really excited about. So that's quite a good opportunity. That's
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's something to look forward to. He was, me and Patrick both spoke to him. He was actually really, really nice, and he was having a good bit of banter. He was taking the piss out of me because of my accent, and he was saying that when it all kicks off, he's going to need someone there in the crowd on his side, and I'm going to be there. Me and him are going to be taking on the 20,000 crowd. It was really good. He was a really nice guy to chat with. But so on to Fight Busters then. I'll read out the clues for this week. We've got 3 clues. People can tweet in at MMA Mental. And what's your handle, Jake? The MMA podcast.
The MMA podcast.
Or they can email mma@hotmail.com. And the tweets this week, the Fight Busters this week. Fight Buster number 1 is Murphy drinking on the ground. Number 2 is a long way to go to find the correct 12 people. And number 3 is wipe your feet and then work out the clue. Now, I know the people in the studio that are here with me, they were able to work out number 3, but they haven't been able to work out number 1 and 2. So if you can get all 3 of them, I can send you out a nice baseball cap, which should look really nice. Nice smart hat.
Yeah, that's definitely a clever-looking hat. Ray, thank you for coming on. I guess you're not going to be here on next week's roundtable because you're going to be out of town. So, I guess we'll see you again on, January 3rd?
Yeah, I'll be back. I'm just going to miss 1 week. I'm going to Spain for Christmas. I'm going into Europe, nice hot country. So I wish all of you there a good Christmas.
Cheers, mate.
Hope Father Christmas brings you everything you want. And I'll speak to you all in the new year.
Hell yeah. Take it easy, Ray. Have a great holiday.
Have fun. Enjoy your ceviche.
Hell yeah.
See you all later. Bye.
See you later. And P Money, did you say you had to dip as well, or are you staying on for the last few topics?
Yeah, gentlemen, I got to dip out as well, but it's been fun as always. Big things coming up from MMA Mental in the MMA podcast, in the word on the streets. Big things coming 2013, so it's looking good, and it's fun as always, gentlemen, and we'll do it next week.
You going to be on next Thursday with us, the 27th?
You know it.
All right, see you there, buddy.
Enjoy the 21st, my friend. Big day.
Don't die.
Day.
Later.
Can't wait.
We're all going to die tomorrow. Later, buddy. So it looks like it's the old MMA podcast threesome going hard at it to wrap up the show. It may as well just be the MMA podcast. It's your 3 favorite little guys, little Ramses. All right. Yeah, son. Let's knock out these last few bits of news. I wanted to talk about Seaver vs. Swanson. Chris and I talked about it yesterday for that February England card, Barao versus McDonald. I think, Chris, you picked Swanson, correct?
Yes.
I have Seaver. I think he's up there. I think he's really improved. He's looked awesome, especially against Nam Fan. Why do you have Seaver, Ray? And then we'll pass it off to Ramses.
Ray?
Or, you know what I meant. You son of a bitch.
Dude, I'm not a balding fat Britishman. Come on, son.
Whoa!
Shit.
I'm just kidding. I love that guy. I actually am balding. I'm kind of chubby and American, so I guess I was just
so that's
right.
probably worse.
Yeah. I have Swanson simply on the fact that Seaver has really fallen against A-level competition. I think that Seaver's game is shucking and diving and dipping and mixing
That's
in
racist.
strikes. And I think that Swanson is just a better version of Seaver. He's way more unpredictable. He uses crazy capoeira strikes. I just see Swanson being more dynamic in this fight and getting the finish.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short on this one. I'm taking Cub Swanson as well. You got to take the young buck in this fucking fight. Dennis Seaver, he needs to start being a fucking extra in action movies or something, because nobody has a Dennis Seaver poster hanging up in their bedroom right now, right? And that's for a fucking reason. Cub Swanson, he's got potential, so I'm gonna just back him for that. Dennis Seaver, he never made a mark. No.
Oh shit! Let's let us move on to another fight recently matched up. Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche at UFC 157. I think all of us have the same pick in that one. All of us think Ronda Rousey is going to win that. But what do you think of Dana's Rousey division? Chris and I had different takes. Chris likes it, but I'm not really a big fan. You know, what you're going to need to set up a division is fan backing. And I don't like Dana saying, "Oh, we'll see what happens. There's no promises. I might cut it out." You either got to commit or not commit, bro. You can't just stand on the edge and be like, "Well, I'm going to develop this division, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We'll see." When the UFC opened up the lighter weights and the feather and bantam and eventually flyweights, it was 100% this is here to stay, whether you like it or not, and it got fans behind it, and I think a lot of, at least the hardcore MMA fans, really like the speed of those divisions. And, you know, this isn't women's basketball. These women fight with the same technique and comparative power that the men fight with. Obviously, a men's bantamweight is going to punch harder than a woman's bantamweight, but the techniques in the fights are just as good. I mean, just look at who is potentially the most technical fighter in MMA today, and I'd say it's Ronda Rousey, even above your John Joneses, Anderson Silvas, etc. So yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Dana White's whole back and forth, standing on the edge but not really committed Rousey division. What do you think, Ramses?
Oh man, I've said it before. The UFC women's division is only as deep as Ronda Rousey's vagina. Honestly,
6 inches?
I was about to say the same exact thing.
I haven't been there. You'd have to ask Dana or excuse me. I just want to know. Right? Yeah, I just want to know how much they're paying Liz Carmouche to take this dive. Because she has to lose. And I just want to know if they're paying her like an extra bonus if she does indeed let her arm get broken and torn apart by Ronda, just for the sake of the women's movement in MMA. That's the only question about this fight. I just want to know how much they're paying Liz Carmouche to do this to herself. Because Ronda Rousey has to win, will win. The UFC put her as the fucking main event of UFC 157, the headline, the fucking headlining fight, Rousey, the women's fight. You think they're going to let her lose? Hell no. Word on the street.
Well, you bring up a good point. How much is the UFC paying Liz Carmouche to take a dive, supposedly? Easy answer. $100,000 to show, I'm guessing, and 20 dime-piece virgins. You know, these chicks that are just going to come in there and get pegged by Liz Carmouche.
Oh, shit.
There you go. That's the word on the street, son. This is an absolutely fantastic move by the UFC. As much as I think that the division is as shallow as Ronda Rousey's vagina, which you so aptly put.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Ramses.
Powerful Ronda Rousey vagina.
Thing is that it's really good for the UFC. You have a lot of casual female fans that couldn't tell you who Manny Gambarian is, but they can go, "Oh, Chuck Liddell, yeah, I saw him fight a couple times." They're going to tune into this fucking fight. This is a big money fight, and this is what is essentially going to establish women's mixed martial arts as a household thing. So I have nothing but respect and expectations for this fight.
Definitely, and I'm glad you brought up Manny Gambarian, because that's the topic in our next bit I want to go over. Chad Mendes matched up for a fight against Manny Gambarian at featherweight at the same UFC 157 card. Very bluntly, does Manny have a chance? I say no. I say they're just trying to get Mendes back on the winning streak. he's Faber's protege, and you know how much the UFC likes treating Faber nicely. So yeah, I don't think Manny has a chance, and I think Chad Mendes will cruise to a unanimous decision here.
Well, that's an interesting decision there. Chad Mendes is a safe bet, but the last time that Manny Gambirian faced a power-punching wrestler near his height, it was Mike Brown, and it was at WEC 48, and he knocked him the fuck out in the first round. I got Manny Gambirian for a knockout.
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, that's going a little too far, calling Gambirian for a knockout, but does Manny have a fucking chance against Chad Mendes? Yes, because what I heard was that Chad Mendes, he fucked up his foot in the last fight, fucking just a minor fracture. He did, this next fight is already booked, so obviously he isn't that bad after all. But anytime you've got a guy that was injured, he was listed as being 6 months out without approval. We'll see how it goes, see when he's going to train. He's just agreeing to this fight so far. It's just on paper. So, yeah, if Mendez's foot is fucked up, Gambirian, he fucking does have a chance. Definitely.
Certainly. And one more topic, another matchup, which in my eyes is a mismatch. You got Josh Koscheck going up against Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler being brought into the UFC. Going to fight Koscheck. Also at this UFC 157 card, do you think Robbie has a chance? I say no. Like my last prediction, I think the favorite, Josh Koscheck, will cruise to a unanimous decision because of this favoritism given to Mendes and Koscheck in matchmaking.
Oh, man, Robbie Lawler. Sorry. Did you have more? Sorry about that.
No, I was actually just saying Ramses.
All right, well, let me I'll fucking lay it down right here. Before the fucking world ends at midnight tonight, cocksuckers. Shout out 2012.
Shout out Mayans.
Hell yeah, man. The word on the streets of the Mayan villages is going down tonight, guys, midnight. But Robbie Lawler, we're looking at a guy coming back to the UFC after having a shaky record in Strikeforce, which is, I'm sorry, lower tier fighters. So they're basically, in my opinion, they're feeding Robbie Lawler. They're feeding this guy to the fucking wolves, to quote Joey Karate, like it was Eddie Sanchez getting assassinated by Mirko Krokop,
cream of the crop,
all over again at UFC 67. It's going to be a murder. Robbie Lawler doesn't stand a chance. Koscheck, I don't know who he's doing favors for, but they line this one up for him easy and nice. Probably going to see a KO, and it's probably going to be a damn good fight. So Koscheck is definitely going to just take this one. Robbie Lawler, I got to say, no chance.
I'm going to go against the grain here, fellas. Let's, beyond looking at Lawler's record and how he won and lost in Strikeforce, beyond the fact that he's cutting down to 170 for the first time in a while, let's look at Josh Koscheck's history with guys that he can't outpower. Paul Daly, grapple fucked him. There's been a lot of guys out there in Josh Koscheck's history that he just wrestled to a decision. Mike Pierce, a guy that he lost to, he tried to out-wrestle, wasn't really throwing many strikes. Johnny Hendricks, he did well in that fight, but Lawler is one of those guys that has that super killer instinct. Even when he's hurt, he can come back with one shot. He's done it plenty of times. For some reason, I'm betting on Robbie Lawler in this fight. I think it's going to be a flash KO in the first round.
Powerful stuff going against the grain. Chris Lowe calling a Robbie Lawler victory over Josh Koscheck. And I guess on that bold prediction, we'll sail out of here. Hopefully the world doesn't end tomorrow and we can be back next Thursday, 7 to 9 Eastern, 4 to 6 Pacific. Usually this is where I pass it off to Ray to plug MMA Mental, but because he left, I'm going to pass it off to Ramses and plug your Twitter, plug your podcast, plug away, bro.
Oh, I appreciate it. First, I'll plug everyone just listen to the MMA Podcast, the MMApodcast.com. For real, my mans Jake and Chris always representing, getting the actual guests on, figuring that shit out. Shout out having me on. Thank you very much every time. Just the word on the street, what I do is basically you want to follow me on Twitter, basically. I do put out videos. I am going with a live podcast, and you'll hear all about that. Just follow me on Twitter. I'm an Opie and Anthony fan. Just that's where the name comes from. Just forget it. But follow me on Twitter, The Ant Jimmy Show on Twitter. At The Ant Jimmy Show on Twitter. Latest UFC rumors and news, predictions, weed smoking, influenced, just shit talking. It's funny. I do it for fun, no money. Thanks again, Jake and Chris. Word on the street.
Hell yeah. TheAntJimmy.SHOW, The Ant Jimmy Show. Honestly, bro, I had seen some of your tweets before you even called in, and you have one of the funnier Twitters in the MMA world. You really put out some funny shit. And your podcast is fucking awesome, too. Looking forward to the next Danger Waffles report, son.
The Danger Waffles report.
Danger Waffles report.
Waffles report.
But definitely I'll play us out a little bit of Armageddon music. Listen to the Roundtable every Thursday, 7 to 9 Eastern. The MMA Podcast, we do it every Wednesday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern. Check us out at the MMA Podcast on Twitter, themmapodcast.com. We're going to get that website back up and going. We've been lazy updating it. And yeah, we're planning on having Lenny Hart, Hector Lombard, Chad George, Joey Diaz, Henzo Gracie, a bunch of guests in the works. So very soon, we're going to bring it to you as soon as possible. Thanks for tuning in. Hope the world doesn't end tomorrow. And if it doesn't, we'll see you next week. Take it easy. And we gone.